going on, people? Welcome to the spoiler alert for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm your host, Tony Polanco, and today I'm joined by a lot of friends that I haven't seen in a while, in a long time, so it's good that we're all together. We're all huge Final Fantasy nerds, so we're going to geek out for the next 2 hours. First up, we got the host of the QPOC podcast, Mr. Jonathan Gibbs.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We got one of the co-founders of the coalition, my man, Gary Swaby.
Hey, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And one of my old-time podcast members from the Dual Shocker Shotcast, Ryan, man. How you doing, man?
I will say right now, I'm as thirsty for Final Fantasy as Jesse is for Cloud.
Perfect. Oh man, so yeah, we're here, man. This is a big game and stuff. And after, I think I can speak for everybody. After finishing that ending, it's like, yo, we got to talk about this. We need to talk about this, man. It's crazy. So we're gonna get to it. But before that, let's talk about a little bit of the journey of how we got here and what we thought about, the remake and all that before it came out. So this whole thing pretty much started in 2005 when Sony showed off that tech demo of Final Fantasy VII running on the PS3. And everybody's like, holy crap, are we going to get a remake of this? Years passed. Jonathan, I'll let you kind of fill in a little bit because you probably know a little bit more. Like, it's been years of, is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? And then it culminated in them officially announcing it in 2015. But what was going on? I just want to ask you that. What was going on with them, like, saying, no, we can't do this. Oh, we don't have time for that. Oh, it's going to take 20 years. All this other stuff.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was like you said, it was just a tech demo. And then people started going crazy for it because they were like, we don't care what you say. It's not a tech demo. You're remaking it. And they really had no intent of doing it. Then they turned around and said, well, if the fans really want it, and I forgot what the stipulation was, but there was some kind of thing like, if this happens, then we'll consider making it. And then eventually, 2015 happened. You saw the video of the people watching it live, many videos. I was one of those people. And the rest is history.
Yeah, it's been an interest. I remember I was there at that E3, and I still remember I was with our friend Charles Singletary. Charles Singletary is one of the most chilled out, most relaxed dudes ever. He doesn't really show a lot of emotion. When that trailer came on, my man lost it. He jumped up like, ah! I think I heard Hip Hop Gamer screaming from all the way on the other side of the stadium or whatever.
I was there with you, Tony.
Yeah, you were.
I was like, for a second you just stopped, and I was like, did Tony's heart just stop? Like when the trailer came on, like, did he have a heart attack and died?
Yeah, it was nuts, man. It was nuts. So yeah, so I just want to ask you guys real quick about what did you think about the Final Fantasy VII remake when it was announced, and did you even want a remake? Ryan, I'll start with you.
I just can't believe it's actually out because it seemed like it's been such a long wait for this. But I mean, even just from that reveal trailer, when you see the reaction videos on YouTube of people that got so emotional from this because it's been something fans have wanted for so long. So yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not the full game. Obviously, there's going to be more parts to come of this experience. But I think so far, what Square gave was really good and really I think delivered as much as they could given the anticipation and the hype that people had for this. Nice. Gary, what about you? Were you hyped for it?
Yeah, you know what? At first, I was feeling like I don't even need a remake because I've replayed the original so many times that I just couldn't imagine anything ever matching that. And I just felt like it was such a unique experience that a remake wasn't needed. I felt like everyone should just go back and play the original. But my opinion has slightly changed, but I guess we'll get into that more later. But yeah, at first I wasn't majorly excited for it, but I knew that I would play it just because it is Final Fantasy. So
yeah, I'm gonna go next just because my sentiments pretty much I know yours. I was excited for it, but at the same time, I was perfectly happy with the original. I didn't I saw the tech demo. I'm like, that's cool, but I didn't really need it or whatever. My mind changed after I played the demo. I was like, oh shit, this is dope. Then my hype, went up and stuff. And then after playing it, which we'll get to in a bit, I'm even more excited for what's coming. So yeah, I was like, because a lot of people, at least from my perspective, seemed like they were either really, really hyped or didn't care. I was somewhere in the middle because it was Final Fantasy. I'm going to play it's Final Fantasy, like, Gary, as you know, we're two of the few guys on the planet that love Final Fantasy 13. Like, give me Final Fantasy, I'll play the hell out of it. But this one, like, just exceeded my expectations. And Jonathan, what about you? Were you hyped for it?
Not really. I was like Gary, but for a different reason. You have to remember, by 2015, Final Fantasy 15 had already been like years in production. Whether you want to debate whether it was only 3 years since 2012 or if it was 10 years since versus 13, I had been waiting for 15 to come out for so long that it was slated to come out the next year. And then in 2016, we started getting gameplay, like minor gameplay for Remake, but the game's 15 coming out. And it kind of looked like the timing must have not been good for them, because a lot of people were like, oh, 7 Remake is just going to be a reskin of 15. And it was looking like that around 2016 era when they started dropping that footage. So I was looking forward to Final Fantasy 16. And I specifically remember telling a lot of my friends, like, Final Fantasy VII Remake is cool, but I need to see what Square-Enix is doing next. Mm-hmm. That was my initial feeling. But as we got closer to it and as that demo came out, I was just like, holy sh... Can we curse on this?
Oh, yes, you can curse. Yeah. Remember, I'm the host here. I'm going to curse like a motherfucker, so you go ahead. Yeah, that's awesome. And
Tony's just going to bleep us out with a chocobo
noise. Could you imagine that? But yeah, I did think that too. I was like, can I get a 16 instead of 7 Remake? I actually said that at one point, But after playing it, I'm like, ooh, man, give me more of this. This is dope, And
it gives hope to future installments that it seems like I'm, another person that we're friends with, we're both jaded with Square-Enix, but it seems like they got this one right. It's like, if they want to care, they can make a good game.
Yeah, is that other person Tim, by the way? Yes, yeah. We always give Tim Torres love here. By the way, yeah, because I remember talking to him for a while. He's like, oh, I don't care about that. I don't care about this. And then I was talking to him the other day. He's like, I can't believe how much I love this game. Like, he said that.
Yeah, like, I think, like Jonathan said, like, I think with Final Fantasy 15, like, because that game essentially started over from, versus 13 and all that, I think you could see playing 15 where they sort of, like, restarted and where they, like, you could see, like, some of the development troubles, I think, along the way with that game. Like, it's a solid game, but I think it does have issues, where Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think, does definitely have a more coherent vision and sort of a more, like, a more defined structure to it than 15.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue to the next thing. So we're going to talk about story. We're not, we're going to just fast and loose here. But you're right. That's a good point about it. It's like Final Fantasy 15, as much as I liked it, and even 13, the stories felt kind of all over the place. They didn't really have focus. This one, like, now that you said, I'm like, yeah, it was really focused. But obviously, it's based off the original to an extent, right? So they had some kind of framework there. But you're right. It's like, for the first time in a while, like, this is a Nomura game that actually makes sense for at the moment. If you guys play Kingdom Hearts 3, Jonathan, at the moment, because we could be on some Nomura shit later, Oh, man. So, let's talk about it. So, basically the story is, it's only the Midgar section of the original. And the original was about 10 hours or so. This one's obviously 40 hours if you, go deep into it and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I love how they delve deeper into stuff, like, I'll just start off with the main thing that struck out to me was after you blow up the Maker reactor, and that was all cool and everything, whatever. It's when you get into the streets, right? You see all the buildings destroyed, people crying and all messed up, and you're like, oh, I did that. That was me. That was us. That was Avalanche. Like, I like how the game really pushes that forward a lot more. The original one kind of hinted at it, but obviously because of technology or whatever, they couldn't really go deep into that. But so yeah, what you guys think about some of the empty spaces that this game filled in terms of story and world building? Ryan, you go first. But again, you guys are free to just jump in. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually what you brought up is a good point. And actually, something I think I'm working on as sort of a feature that I'm writing is just the way that I think Square really filled out the world of Midgar and made it feel like a more lived-in sort of space. Like, like there's a lot of, like, in the beginning of the game where you see sort of these different districts of Midgar. And then later on, like when you're going through the, I forget what, like the sort of the slum areas, the more like impoverished areas that aren't as well off, and then you go later on in the game when you go to those more like wealthy districts, and you sort of see those like sort of class struggles between these different parts of Midgar. And I think like you said, when later on when there's some pretty devastating stuff that happens in Midgar, like I think you get more of that emotional connection to the city because you've walked through these different areas, you've seen the people that live there. So I think, and and even like some of the parts like the Wall Market, like which is this like bright, really lively place. I think they just did a great job. Like I think like the original Final Fantasy VII was sort of like an outline for what this world was and the people that lived there, and I think this one sort of fills in more of those details.
Yeah.
And on top of that, this is the first time that I ever ran around a town just going up to people, listening to what they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to add what Ryan was saying, that lived-in feeling, these people had, like, a whole narrative going for the event around them. And, like, saying, and then also referencing stuff in the made-up history of Midgar. I heard, like, people talking about gentrification. Like, they really, really planned this out. Like, when you're on the top plate in Midgar after the Mako reactor blows up, there's like this hipster dude with his wife and kid, and he's like, I guess we can go to your sister's in the slums. But if you play later in the slums, some people are complaining about how the top side people, the people that live on the plate, are like gentrifying and like taking up. In Wall Market, they definitely talk about gentrification a lot, about how you can't get a seat at your favorite restaurant and all this stuff. And like living in New York, I hear that kind of stuff all the time. I'm not a native New Yorker. I'm actually a gentrifier probably. But Tony's someone who's lived here all your life. If you're listening, you could definitely hear that. And that just goes to show, again, if Square wants to care, they can care. They made a full-ass universe in this in this big city, in this huge story. So I really appreciated that, just that really lived-in feeling. Another thing is that the assets, like, I never found myself being like, I already saw that, like going down a disheveled freeway, or like, there was a Kotaku article about the accuracy of the air conditioning units in the buildings and stuff. It's just so really well done. And for me, it's going to be 99%. Everything was solid, well done. Whether we're talking about narrative, presentation, mechanics, very happy with the game overall.
Yeah, I think like to sort of add on to what Jonathan was saying was just like, I like how they really made each of the different sectors and districts that you feel distinct from one another. So you sort of like, as you're walking around, you got a feel for who lives there, for what the, what the day-to-day life is like there. Like one of my favorite things was that when you're walking through the Wall Market, the music, it's playing the same music in each part of the Wall Market, but it's a different style. So like if you transition from one part of the Wall Market to another one, it'll change to like, so I thought it was a really like cool subtle thing that they did to sort of like not only situate you into what part of the Wall Market you're in, but sort of to get an idea of like the people that live there and what their society is like.
Yeah, Gary, what do you think about the world building in this game?
Oh, it was excellent. Like that's one of the things that I can honestly say they did way better than the original, because like in the original, when it's all said and done, you only really remember the story of the main characters, but in this, like the actual Midgar is it's like a character in itself. And like you guys all mentioned already, the NPCs feel very much alive, and I love that as you walk you just hear them say stuff. Like it's not like traditional RPGs where you have to like go up to the NPC and press X and talk to them or something like that. Like you just hear them as you're walking. And I think that was a nice touch, because you hear how all of your actions in the game are affecting the lives of the people, and that means so much. It makes it feel a lot more real, and it gives you more of a sense of urgency to kind of turn things around and keep progressing. So that was one of the things they definitely excelled at, and they did it because they have certain things like that to a certain extent in Final Fantasy 15, but they excelled at it with this game. They did it way better than 15 did. So I give them props, because I definitely felt like I was actually in Midgar.
Yeah, like this is a game like I felt like I could just literally just stand for hours just listening to the conversations going on and stuff. And then obviously as you progress, the conversations change depending on how the world is changing. And even some of the same characters keep popping up. Like the one I'm thinking about right now, it's kind of a silly one, but it's just kind of fun how when you're walking around, you know, Wallguard and stuff, there's this one guy who's with his girlfriend, and every time you pass by, like, you know, when you're with Aerith, I'll say Aerith for you guys because I know I'm going to get some heat for it. When you're with Aerith, and then when Cloud's in a dress and stuff, like first he sees Aerith, like, oh wow, she's really beautiful, and then the girl's like, why are you looking at her? You know, I'm your girlfriend. Like, no, baby, I only got eyes for you. And then later on, when he sees Cloud in dress, like, oh wow, look at her. She's like, are you looking at another girl again? He's like, no, baby, I was just comparing her to you. And she's like, you know, I think you're a moron. Like little things like that. You know, it's a lot of fun. But yeah, obviously, since, you know, we get to spend so much more time in Midgar, not only do we just spend in the world itself, but with the characters. And it's kind of cool how they took the characters that we all knew and expanded on them, but they still kept them like familiar and also fresh at the same time. I really love that, you know. And with Aerith specifically, there's something about her I'll get to later. But what do you guys think about the characterization? Because I thought it was fantastic. Like again, this was another aspect of the game I didn't expect to be as good as it was. Jonathan, you could start us off with that.
You know, the only one that I was thinking I was going to have issues with was Barrett.
Yeah, because of the voice, right? Yeah,
being like this very stereotypical, over the top type person. But again, they did such a good job at like showing the characters in their downtime as well. So, you know, when we're sitting in Seventh Heaven and just like decompressing after a mission or in between missions, you know, you get to see Barrett's relationship to his daughter. Which is something that you could see in the original as well, but it wasn't voiced out and it wasn't acted. And that's 2020. It's many years after 1997, and we have more technology. And so I was glad to see that character fleshed out more. Everybody else was like, I think spot on. Cloud was the very meh type person, and you know, like everybody fit. Seeing certain characters fleshed out. With today's technology also made me appreciate them more, like Reno and Rude. You know, the Turks were always like this mysterious thing, but you know, now I really get to get a feel for who they are. I mean, you might say, oh, if you watched Advent Children, you might get to see that as well, but I did not live for that movie. So, you know, just seeing them in this game, it really helps me to understand. It is a spoiler cast, so like Sephiroth.
Yeah, go nuts, bro.
I read that a lot of people were not happy with like his voice actor and all that stuff. Seeing him in the flesh, like the digital flesh, like seeing him with today's technology, it kind of creepy. And I don't know if that's the vibe that they were going for in the original. Like he was a madman, and then he had very intent focus on becoming a god. And in this, which when we talk about the story later, I think this plays into that.
Yeah,
so I'm
for
going
sure.
to put a note down for me to remember that.
Yeah. By the way, for you guys listening, I distinctly told these guys, let's talk about everything, you know, chapter 1 through 17 and then 18 later, because 18 takes so much. We could literally just talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Like that could just overtake everything, but we got to control it here because that's what I wanted. I was like, yo, let's talk about 18 right now. This is fucking nuts, you know? But yeah. Gary, what do you think about the characters and the characterization and all that?
Yeah, I think they did an excellent job with that also, because I was a bit worried that Cloud was going to come off as like an emo or something. But they did a great job with him. You know, he's just he's just the kind of guy who, like, you know, he's straightforward. You know, he's straight and narrow, gives you straightforward answers to things, and you know, he's not emo or anything like that. But he also can, you know, I like seeing his personal growth throughout, because you know, at first he's super quiet and everything, but then later on he starts to open up more and interact with the other characters and joke around and stuff like that. So I think they did a great job with Cloud. With Aerith, I was also worried that she was going to come across as like a generic vulnerable healer or something, but she has a lot of flair to her character, a lot of personality, and I think they nailed it with her. Barrett, he wasn't as over the top either as everyone expected him to be. You know, because everyone was thinking he was going to be the stereotypical, black action guy like Mr. T or something like that. But nah, I think they made it work. Sometimes maybe he is over the top, but they made it work. They turned it into comedic, value. I think, and it just works. I wasn't offended or anything at any point. So I think they did a good job. And Tifa, like this game actually made me like Tifa more because in the original I was more of an Aerith guy, but this game made me more of a Tifa fan, to be honest. So I think they did a great job. With Sephiroth, I'm gonna come back to him later just because I think I'm thinking the same thing that Blasian was thinking. So I'll come back to that later once we dive into chapter 18 stuff.
Yeah.
Question about Tifa. Was Tifa always a wishy-washy person even in the original? Were people like telling Tifa you need to choose a path? Like they were really driving that home in this game.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but because I did find that interesting how like she's kind of like the not I don't want to say the conscious of it, but she's the one that questions some of their actions. Like they really did play that up. There's this one part. By the way, I did both, but if you don't go up the stairs and stuff, you take the elevator, and there's some stops where you got to fight enemies, but there's this one stop. This woman, Shinra employee tries to come in, and she sees you decked out with all these weapons and shit, and she gets scared, she runs away, and Tifa's like, oh my God, Shinra employees are just regular people. And then she questions herself again, and Barrett has to, and he gives this awesome speech. Going back to Barrett, like, even though there are moments where he sounds cheesy and shit, he has some great one-liners, And in that elevator scene, I'm like, oh wow, that was a really solid line, and it kind of made Tifa snap out of it. But no, I don't remember.
I didn't play that part, so now because I'm doing the second playthrough, so I definitely need to take the other way next time instead of the stairs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get to this is going to be the gameplay aspect, because now that I'm replaying some of the chapters, I'm like, oh shit, things actually play out differently depending on how you do it. I want to talk about Aerith real quick, because I find it interesting how after Final Fantasy VII, right, in all subsequent media, she's been portrayed as this like holy angelic being, purity, all this other stuff. Like she just seems like a deity from above or whatever. And I love how this game brought her back to the way she's supposed to be. If you guys remember the Final Fantasy VII, she had a mischievous side to her. She's the one that says, "Hey, Cloud, let's dress you up like a girl. Let's go in there," And then to what's his face? What's the name of the bad guy that runs Walmart again?
Don Corneo.
Yeah, she's the one like, yo, I'm gonna chop off your dick, or you know what I'm saying? Like she had a streak to her. So I love how this game not only kept that, but also intensified in some ways. Like there's this one part where she's climbing up like this ladder and stuff, it breaks, and she's like, shit, So like that is cool how they kept that about her. And all throughout the game, especially when she first meets Cloud, she fucks with him. She teases him and shit. After the church scene, he's like, why are they after you? Like, what kind of secrets are you holding? He's like, oh, how do you know he didn't want to recruit me to be, one of them? You know what I'm saying? And then she keeps teasing him about it. So that was kind of fun, because she saw this kind of like wall that Cloud had, and she's like, I'm breaking that shit down, and she eventually did. So I really liked her characterization, and I'll talk more about her at chapter 18, because it's going to be interesting. Ryan, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know who got like development and characterization that really surprised me and pulled me in? Elmira.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was
like, go ahead, Elmira. Good for you.
She
was. I don't remember her in the original being like, leave tonight. I think Cloud in the original was just like, he's gonna leave tonight. Or did she do that? There's a lot of stuff about OG that I don't remember that showed up in this game. Another one, the Shinra manager. I thought that was for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but going back, he was all through the original as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and is he the guy who be? I do have to say his name correctly. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. That's right. Oh man. By the way, this completely off. It's still on topic. Shinra himself, right? The president or whatever. Like his voice fucked with me the entire game. Like, who is this dude? I know that voice. It turns out he's the what's his face? The Skull Face from Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm like, oh, that's why. That's where I know him from. Because he has that. It's like, like who is this dude? It's bugging me the whole fucking game.
He had that gruff voice. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, what'd you think about the characters and characterization?
Yeah, I think like everyone said so far, like I think they did a great job at sort of staying true to the essence of the characters from the original. And like Gary said, I think this game made me way more of a Tifa fan than I was in
Yes.
Final Fantasy VII, because I thought like I thought she was fine in the original, but I really liked the way that they sort of fleshed out her character. And I guess, I think like with all these characters, like I really did like how they really illustrated sort of their like inner conflicts, like Cloud being sort of this traumatized soldier, and then Barrett and Tifa and Aerith's their sort of backstories and the tragedies they've gone through with their lives. So I think they did a great job of making them all like really likable, but also giving these backstories that you could get invested in to sort of understand their histories and the things they've gone through in the past.
Yeah, and then a lot of the same scenarios from the original game are here, just amplified and all that. So I want to talk about some of our favorite moments, whether it be action scenes or character scenes. What were some of your favorite moments? It could just be off the top of your head. Gary, why don't you start us off? What were some of your favorite moments of the game?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I would have to say so two things. So like the first one would be when you go on that mission with Jesse right before they prepare for the second bombing mission or whatever. And you go to help her out or whatever, and you actually get to ride the bike for the first time, before the famous ending part. But that whole sequence was amazing because it's like, because one of the things I was worried about is that they were going to add a bunch of filler to this game to kind of pad it out and stuff and make it a full game or whatever. But they made everything they added was meaningful, and it fleshed out the characters. And that was something else I should have said before as well, like the fact that they the characters Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, like they were fully fleshed out this time. I actually cared about them, because in the original I never cared about those characters. So this game actually made me care, and that whole sequence was amazing, from riding the bike to sneaking in that area that they went to or whatever, to even going to Jesse's house, and sneaking in there and stuff. Like, a lot of that stuff was great added material. And the second part would probably be the whole wall market segment. I found that to be very fun, and you had a lot of different things you could do, from the Colosseum to the gym and everything, and the area was just full of life. So there was lots to see, lots to do there. And although it wasn't all exactly the same progression as the original, to get the dresses and everything, I think they did an excellent job, of making that part feel special and atmospheric and everything. So those two parts stand out the most for me when I remember my initial playthrough.
Yeah, Ryan.
I think like for me, definitely the opening of the game I think is extremely strong. Like I think it just opened, like the first hour or two of that game is just like extremely well paced, and even though it's very linear, I think it does a great job sort of like reintroducing you to this world. And like I definitely get emotional playing the opening of this game, when like you're going through the opening train section and you're fighting all the Shinra soldiers, and then you go up against the Scorpion Sentinel and all that. Like I think it was just like it was a perfect blend, I think, of the nostalgia that people are looking for from this game, and also the introducing the new elements that are unique to this game and what it's sort of doing differently from the original game. And then other than that, like there are a bunch of moments I think that are great in this game. Like I thought that they really played well into the whole sort of like love triangle slash square of this game between Tifa, Aerith, Jesse, and Cloud.
Yes.
I think they just did like, so they had so many fun moments I think with those characters, and it was just like people on Twitter saying that this is like the horniest game they've ever played, and I think that they really played into that, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I just remember that one sequence in the ghost train yard or whatever, like, where the girls are on Cloud's arms. And it was funny, like, Aerith has this smile on her face, like, oh, Ghost, this is cool, let's go. And Tifa, she's supposed to be this badass bird. She's like, Ghost, I don't want to go in there.
Just any of the Cloud and Jesse scenes are fantastic in this game. They're so funny, and I just thought they were like some of the best like parts of the game. I thought were really, really great.
Yeah, she's like, man, she really wants that Buster sword, For me, I really liked, it is weird because I thought it was going to be a brief sequence, but it was actually pretty long. everything that happened, when you got to the Shinra building, I'm like, oh wow, this is cool, because it was such a good mix of like, there was a lot of bosses in there, so I like that too. It was like a good mix of action plus world building, because like you really got to find out about the history of Midgar, but told through the eyes of Shinra and that propaganda. So I thought that was cool. So you got to kind of have to sparse out what's real and what isn't or whatever. So that was really cool. You go through the museum. There's that one spot where you see all the armors and robots, and like Cloud was like, "Hey, these look familiar," and Barrett's like, "Yeah, it's because we blew up most of these things." So I thought that was cool. There was the little holographic sequence and stuff where you get to see all that other stuff. When it comes to the world building, then that huge, like, it was like a 1,000 scale model of Midgar. I'm like, oh wow. Like I remember when I was playing, I kept going around just looking at it and stuff, like, okay, there's that reactor, this and that. Like it was so, that whole sequence is just so cool. It was just a good balance of like, because again, I expected it just to be like wall to wall boss fights, because we're at the end of the game. It's like, no, we're gonna give you that and some really cool world building stuff. And then the sequence where you meet the mayor and stuff, like, yeah, I'm the mayor and they got me stuck in this stupid library. I thought that was pretty fun. And we also see some people that are within Shinra, they don't really like subscribe to that philosophy, so they're actively trying to subvert it and stuff in their own ways. Like I forget his name, the guy who is Kate C. I gotta say Kate C now. I don't like pronouncing these things differently. Like I gotta say Mako now. I've been saying Mako for like 20 years. Anyway, so yeah, that whole sequence, and then obviously that leads to like the classic bike scene. That everybody remembers. It was just so well done. And then chapter 18, which we'll get to. And again, there's so many things I could just talk about. So many scenes from Wall Market was dope. The whole like all the chapters with Aerith, and you see their relationship growing. That was really cool. I thought that was a lot. It made me like her more, because I was a Tifa fan from the beginning. Just because she had them big. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I liked her. But in this one, I'm like, hey, Aerith, man, she kind of wife material right now, bro. Anyway, Jonathan, what was some of your favorite moments?
Well, I want to respond. So I also for 20 years called it Kate Sith.
Yes,
that's what I called it. Yeah.
What the fuck is Ketchi? One part. So I still loved it, and it was much more extended than it was in the game. But so it was the pillar blow up of Sector 7. The final like movie of it all happening, it made it more realistic. But there was still something off about the presentation. And I think it was like Ketchi running up and being like, no, I couldn't stop it. And it's like, who are you?
Yeah, like, what's that?
Cat.
I did.
People who had never played the game before.
That was like the Kingdom Hearts 3 moment of this game for me, where it was like, wait, what? Like, it just like completely took me out of it for a second. Like,
so, and then like others have said, like, and Tony, I think you kind of hinted toward this, but like, there are a lot of scenes that, again, Square just got it right. I'm going to be a broken record. But like they took the Final Fantasy 13 aspect of hallway simulator and they applied it to here, but then they gave good story and paced it well so that anytime you did have to go down this forest path, for instance, I'm thinking of the time when Aerith shows Cloud what Wall Market is, even though they're not headed toward that way. Plus it had some really beautiful new music that was just very like nostalgic but soft and nice, kind of like watching fireworks. The music from when they go on the date in Golden Saucer and OG, that really nice music. And but then the other one for me is, this is going to be super geeky as from a music perspective, because this game had amazing music. When you're escaping after the Mako 1 bombing, you're fighting these soldiers. The part when he's about to jump on the train, but leading up to the train, every battle that you fight, the music is not exactly the battle music that you remember from Final Fantasy VII. It's a different arrangement that is missing some instruments. But as soon as you get to the boss fight with the hunter guy with the shield or whatever, then finally the music is the Final Fantasy music. And I remember like being, bitch, we have arrived. This was amazing. And I turned that shit up and I was just pushing buttons and casting fire. I was so happy. So much fun.
Oh, man. By the way, perfect segue, because the next thing I want to talk about was gameplay and graphics. Let's jump into music. I almost forgot about the music. The music in this game is incredible. And here's the thing. I may not describe this correctly, but I felt like the way the music was in this game was more subconscious and everything. It wasn't so much in your face. Like, you go into a place and you're like, Oh yeah, I do remember that. That sounds appropriate for this moment, and it had that over and over again. But then, of course, like you said, Jonathan, there's moments where they just hit you with that old school stuff. But obviously, with newer like instruments or whatever, I'm like, wow, this is cool. But I really loved like just going to the different places. Like Ryan, you said this too. Like the musical change, like on Walmart is like
Yeah.
and then they had like different
It's
arrangements
the,
of
yeah,
it.
it's the same piece of music, but it like changes different instrumentations, like depending on what part of the area you're in. It's really cool. Yeah, I think the
Which
music
is
in this
very
game.
Banjo Kazooie like, right?
Yeah, it
I think
was. Yeah.
the music in this game, I think as a whole, is just incredible. Like, there's like aside from just like giving those sort of those the pieces of music that everyone remembers from the original game. Like Jonathan said, I think like the way that they did sort of new interpretations of it and new styles of it, I think was really really cool.
Yeah, and again, like I said, a lot of the music just like, and it just came out of nowhere. Like I'd be playing a game, a piece hits me, and then all of a sudden I'm back in 1997. Like it just transports me right back, even though everything looks different, sounds different. I'm like, oh wow,
It was definitely for me like at the very beginning when you first hear the battle theme and it just hits you and it was just like it was just so incredible. Just like I think I had that feeling of just like being transported back to like playing the game for the first time.
Yeah, that it was just good. Like I wish I was better at describing music as like Jonathan is and stuff, but I'm like, yo, this music is so good, man.
I think for me too, another piece of music was the victory music because you actually don't really hear it at, like through most of the game until Barrett does the like. Dun, 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 dun. I thought that was really really funny and a good way to do that because I was waiting for that to like I was like when are they going to play this music because like that's you have to have it in this game so.
Yeah, that was really good. Gary, what'd you think of the music? The way they changed it and the way they kept it the same and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean the original soundtrack is so ingrained in me that that will forever be my preference, like the old school one. But they did a great job of upgrading it and making all of the music fit in context of what's happening in the game. And even what Blasian said about how they changed certain instruments and stuff until certain moments, like that was all well done. The only gripe I had was when I got to certain parts of the game and I was expecting certain songs, but I didn't hear them because they changed it a little.
Wait, like what?
Let me think. There was something more specific, but I guess the example I'll go with because I remember it right now is Wall Market because I think it's what's that song? I think it's Oppressed People or something. That's the song that plays at Wall Market, but you don't obviously they have a mix of things now, so you don't hear that all the time. But they did have that song in the game. I think you hear it in the sewers.
In the Sector 6 highway, yeah.
Yeah, when you fight those bandits, yeah. So at least they had the song, there was something else, but I just can't recall it right now. If I think of it, I'll bring it up again. But yeah, just that's not even a big gripe though, like because I can live with the new music because they did such a great job. Like all of the new stuff they added is great. I just kind of need time to absorb it more, I guess, and get used to it because I'm so used to the original soundtrack and stuff. But
yeah, one thing I want to jump in with, I kind of find it funny because I've been playing a lot of the newer Final Fantasies, just like you guys. I like how those games have specific kind of music. I don't know if they're the same composer, Jonathan, on the latest Final Fantasies, but I heard some of those like. Not those compositions, but the same style pop up like throughout this game. So it was really cool how they blended in like the newer Final Fantasy music, which I think is great. Final Fantasy 13 and 15. I love that music in those games. So it's cool how they incorporate that. There's even like some songs with vocals in them that I thought were really cool. It's just really great. I don't really say this too often about modern game soundtracks. I think most modern game soundtracks are kind of just bland and boring. This is what I want to get. Like this is so good the way they just did all that. But Jonathan, tell us more about the music since you're the music expert here.
So I'm like trying to Google it at the same time, but I know for a fact that Nobuo Uematsu, who is the composer of most of the Final Fantasy music, he only came in, I think, for Hollow, which was the credits music. But I know that the composer for Final Fantasy X had a part to play in this soundtrack in rearranging, and I think 2 or 3 other people did as well. So I remember watching this, it's a Square-Enix special, and it's on their YouTube channel. And as the game was about to be released, they talked about different things. And there was this good long video about the soundtrack and how they tried to honor and respect the originals while giving something new to people. But I think it's no doubt, when someone said earlier, like, it took me back to 1997, that's definitely the job of music, to connect you to the past, especially for something like this. So, yeah, I can say about the soundtrack, it's $77.77, and it comes out in May, and it's 7 discs long. That's particularly probably because, like I think Ryan mentioned, different layers to the same track over and over again, in battle, out of battle. And that's not a new idea, like going back to Banjo-Kazooie, but it's also been used in Kingdom Hearts a lot, where you have like a world theme and then a battle theme for the world where it kind of fades in and fades out. Game just really did it really well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed.
I remember.
Yeah, go ahead. Which one was it?
Yeah, so I remember which one it was. It was "Anxious Heart" was the song. I heard it like twice, but they only played it like really short. Like
That's
really
the Nibelheim theme, right?
Yeah, that one. But in the original, they play that throughout the train graveyard. So I was expecting it to be there, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So that was what I was trying to remember before.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing just from doing this podcast at the moment is like the underlying theme is this is what happens when Square cares. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like all that detail and stuff. But yeah, let's go into obviously the main thing, besides the story and all that, the big change here is the gameplay, right? Original was turn-based and all that, and the world was pretty much like, in the style of Resident Evil where you had these static CG backgrounds and 3D characters and stuff. Obviously everything's 3D here. It's all, real time and all that. So, there's little variations of it, but let's get into it, because this game, I'm going to say this right now, this is maybe it's because I played it wrong, the hardest Final Fantasy I've ever played. Like, I've never used as many Phoenix Downs in a Final Fantasy game, because I've used more Phoenix Downs in this game than I have in every Final Fantasy combined. I was getting murdered. It wasn't until like maybe the final, chapter 18, I was like, Tony, block. Because I would always just roll. Like, okay, when I play action games, my natural inclination is to roll out of the way. Rolling is good for some instances, but for 95% of instances, blocking will save your ass, man. So I kind of learned that a little bit too late. So it's like, you got to be really strategic with it. And that's the other thing I kind of feared, right? Because usually, and this is just my, feeling about it, it's like, action games are good, but they don't really have a lot of strategy. Just like, don't take a lot of damage and just hit shit until it dies. I love how this game kept the strategic element of the original one. You have to constantly switch between characters, heal them up and stuff, reposition them, use certain weapons and materia, which we'll get to in a bit, for different enemies and stuff. I just love that. It's like the game just keeps you just constantly bouncing back and forth and all that, and you really just can't go. If you go into a battle, you're gonna get fucked up. Like, if you don't really think about it. I remember Kotaku, they wrote this article saying, this game is, it's funny because they wrote one article saying the game was too hard and then it was too easy, some bullshit like that. But apparently one of the battles that the guy had a problem with, like, it was Tifa and Aerith near the end of the game. They were fighting some dogs and stuff, and he said he got fucked up so many times that he had to lower the difficulty, right? I remember that battle. When I first played, I got murdered like crazy. I'm like, oh, okay, like, what the hell? So when I went back, I'm like, dogs are weak to fire. I go in there remembering that, took them all out. And I had a lot of instances like that and especially the Hell House, like, yo, the first time I did that shit took me like an hour, bro.
That was a long fight, yeah.
And then, when I did it again, I was like, it gives you like, if it's on fire, right? Like, if it's hot or whatever, throw ice at it. If it has lightning, throw wind at it. And that battle just went like, I wouldn't say nothing, but it went a lot faster. So again, I love how they kept the strategic part of it while having a nice, fast and action pace. Even though I'm more, like, when it comes to RPGs, I'm still old school about it. I prefer turn-based. I know that for the mass market, they like action and stuff. So I like how they kept that, to satisfy those people, but at the same time, give us what we want, the strategy and stuff. It's a thinking man's game. Like I said, I was getting destroyed until the game like beat me over the head. Like, no, play it this way, and then it all finally clicked. Jonathan, what do you think of the battle system in this game?
So a lot of people were really upset that it went to like action real time, and they'd been upset since Final Fantasy 15 because they saw that Square-Enix was taking Final Fantasy and doing more of a Kingdom Hearts approach. And I really push back against that, because if you look at the overall history of Final Fantasy's battle system, like starting on the NES, what could you do but have everybody on this side of the screen, and then the enemies on this side of the screen. And then as you evolved, you like got to I forget which one it was first, maybe 4, maybe 5, but then you started seeing the ATB, or the active time.
I think it was
battle
4.
system,
Yeah, 4. Yeah.
which was supposed to emulate, how fast one person moves versus another. And like, even if you're trying to navigate through the menu, they'll attack you if you don't make a decision. And then after that, they threw folks a bone with the real true turn-based system with 10, where you see everybody on the side and it's all stat-based. But then after that, then at the time online stuff was popular with 12, so they said, okay, let's make an MMO but not online. And then 13, they like really evolved it, so it was like action but still menu driven. And then you get 15, which was like Kingdom Hearts in a way. And then finally, again, the culmination of all their knowledge. It's like, it just makes sense. It's a real-time battle action game, but with that, they figured out how to put the ATB in there. Because, like you said, Tony, it's strategic. You're not going to get through there just hacking and slashing, and you're not. Something that I found out really late is you're not going to get through some of the later battles without using your teammates' abilities.
Yes.
So even if it's just hitting R2 to bring up their menu and then make them cure you, or make them use the element against the enemy, like, you have a whole set of moves from them that they've built up while you're playing. But I got far into the game because I remember from OG, the elemental materia. I was like, okay, once I got the elemental materia, I was like, let me just connect this to a lightning whenever I'm fighting a robot, or this to a fire. So right before going into battle, and I was hacking and slashing and killing them. But that's just like, I might say it common sense, but not everybody might not know what elemental materia is. But there's a really good article that shows that there are a lot of different tips and tricks that you can use. And like, you can double cast, you can make one spell go on everybody, you can connect elemental materia. They've made it to where you could play the game different ways, but regardless of how you play it, you're going to have to think and have a strategy behind it.
Yeah, no. By the way, that materia, when I finally got that, I'm like, oh, it's on now, man. Because you're right. It's like, if you're fighting monsters and stuff, like fire generally works well against them. Robots, lightning, whip all their asses and stuff. That was really cool. I'm just going to put a pin on materia because I do want to circle back to that. Gary, what do you think of the battle system in this game?
I thought it was great. I mean, like you, Tony, I really prefer turn-based battle systems in RPGs. But I loved this game because it was like, they took the best parts of like Final Fantasy XIII, which is one that, I kind of would enjoy. It wasn't the game everyone was expecting it to be and stuff, but I still kind of, enjoyed that series of games specifically for the battle system. And 15, they took, some bits and pieces from that as well. But this one is way more refined. And fine-tuned, and I loved that the game challenged me. It made me think about how to beat certain bosses, because like you, Tony, I was dying a lot in this game and using a lot of Phoenix Downs. There was some battles where I was basically in defense mode the whole thing. Like I could not even attack the enemy because I just kept healing, so that I wouldn't be wiped out. But, eventually you kind of learn what works against each specific boss. And I love games like that make you think and, make you kind of come up with new strategies to beat a certain boss. I mean, the only annoyance I had was that sometimes it literally felt like, in certain battles, that the enemy would wait until the exact moment that I was trying to use my limit break or a certain ability, and they would just straight up cancel it. Like,
anytime I did like a spell or something, and then an enemy would hit me while I'm doing it and waste that bar, I got so frustrated. It was just
Yo, Jonathan, I remember you screaming about that. Yo, this game used to chill with that shit.
It does. So I was like, I waited all this time for this limit break, and now you just can stop me.
Yeah.
My friend Random J on Twitter, he was like, bitch, you can cancel limit breaks now? They're cancelable?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
like
and-
sometimes,
and
or
they-
sometimes I would do a limit break. Like if I did like Tifa's and I was too far away, and I would just whiff it and just miss them completely. And that was always
That
the
shit happened
worst.
to
Like
me a lot in the end of the game. Like,
yeah,
because Braver is really good to use to like build up stagger.
Yeah.
Which, Tony, I was going to ask you, were you staggering people through this game? Because you said you were you having a hard time.
Yeah, no, I was actually doing it pretty okay with staggering. It's just like they kept hitting
Yeah.
you hard, bro,
or I would
you know?
I would do like Cloud's triple slash, and the boss would move right as he was about to hit him with triple
Yeah.
slash
Yeah.
and just waste it. It was so annoying.
Yeah, that was
sometimes.
annoying. By the way, I do want to quickly jump on that. Yeah, I was like, there's something Gary said. Final Fantasy 13, the stagger system. Like I feel this is a more refined version of it, you know, and it's kind of cool
yeah.
that they brought that back. That was one of the cool. Here's the thing about Final Fantasy 13. Not to get too off track. Even people who don't like it say like, "Yo, that battle system is kind of dope." So it's kind of cool how they incorporated some of that in there, where you got to stagger them first, and then you could deal a ton of damage. I felt that was good. But yeah, I was staggering them. It's just like I wasn't defending myself as much as I could have, you know. Like again, like. I wanted this game to be strategic. Then I wasn't being strategic. It's just kind of funny how that worked, you know. Gary, anything else about the battle system you want to say?
No, we pretty much covered it. I will say, like in one of the big boss fights in chapter 18, which we'll talk about later, but in one of them they were doing like the little cutscenes too much. I felt like during the battle, so like there was just too many back-to-back kind of cutscenes while you were actually fighting. So while you were actually like, you know, doing a limit break or doing Brave Roll or something, it would have like a cutscene of the boss moving or something like that.
Correction and all this stuff.
Oh yeah, you know how many times that happened?
In
Like
procession, I'm like,
Yeah.
girl, stop.
yeah, that happened to me a lot. I was like, oh, I got the perfect move. It's about to come out. I got to heal whatever. It's like, oh, here's a cutscene. I'm like, bro, really? Like I'm about to fucking die. Let me heal, man. Shit. Oh man, Ryan, what'd you think of the battle system?
Yeah, I think like we pretty much hit a lot of the things that I liked about. Like I really enjoyed the system overall, other than some of those annoying things we said, like how you know your spells and limits can get canceled and that type of thing. And yeah, I think it takes some getting used to, like sort of adjusting to how to block and defend yourself. I think especially the one thing I liked a lot was like Jonathan said, how like, you know, it's really important to learn how to switch between these characters. And I especially think that they did a great job making, you know, Barrett, Cloud, Tifa, Aerith all feel distinct from one another in terms of how they fight and what abilities they have. Even though like you have some flexibility with the materia to sort of, you know, customize them a bit to, you know, give them new abilities and things, but they all still kind of have their own style. Because like, you know, you'll usually use Barrett or Aerith for long range characters or things that are flying in the air, and then you use Cloud and Tifa for, you know, hitting things up close. But I still like, you know, I found it was important not to sort of have like a main, like have one character that you're just playing as the whole time. Like it's really important to switch between each of the characters and using their abilities at all times. And I actually, that made me appreciate the characters a lot more and how different they are from one another. Like, you know, like Barrett, was found was really useful for being able to hit things from far away. And Tifa, I think, was the character that I found was the most fun to play. Like I thought she was just so fun to just like go up to enemies and just start punching the heck out of them. Like it was great. So yeah, I think that the way that they made the combat system feel like varied, and that the characters each had their own distinct role in your party was really cool.
Yeah, one other thing
what?
I just thought. Oh, go ahead, Gary. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I actually want a Tifa beat 'em up game.
That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
Tifa was so fun to play as. Like, I think she has like some of the best melee combat of any like recent game that I played. Like, she just feels so good to use, and of all the characters, like, and I didn't expect that at all. I thought like Cloud was probably going to be my main out of all the characters. So.
Yeah, one thing I really liked was the environmental stuff. Like even from the spider, not spider, the scorpion robot. Like, you know, he'll shoot something, you got to hide behind cover. And I remember, even though that was cool, like my favorite part was near the end when it was Barrett and Aerith. And it's funny because they're both long range, right? You're fighting against this giant tank or whatever, and I used the cover like a lot, you know, like, and it saved me a lot. Like he was like, because the game always tells you what they're gonna do. So like when it's like, oh, he's gonna do a super move, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna run back here real quick. So I just cheesed them back there. But obviously, you know, at the end of that fight, it's like you're in a wall of fire, that thing's right in front of you. You got to take it out real quick. So I was going. Then the enemies could like kill you too using the environment. I remember, I think it was Abzu in the sewer, right? Yo,
yeah.
I think kept one shotting me. I'm like, what the fuck, man? This is
that was a hard fight. I think you know, I think that, and there's the other one later. There's that optional boss fight that's in the sewer. The big like tigery thing. I forget what it's called, but that one was really hard.
Yeah.
And, like I finally beat it like my second attempt, but that one I was like really like yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is with Abzu, you know, going back to him because I was so frustrated. I kept getting one shot. It's like, hey, dude, stay in the middle when the water comes out, and then like when I finally learned that, I beat him right there. You know.
Yeah, I think like Gary said, like I think there were definitely times where I I felt like I was getting really overwhelmed by some of the bosses and the enemies, where just like my characters were constantly dying. Like especially like if I was trying to use like there were points where basically I would have like one character left, and then basically I was spending my entire time just trying to revive all my other characters, and I was just like throwing Phoenix Downs everywhere and trying to heal them, and it just that got kind of overwhelming sometimes. But
yeah, and especially since like you only have maybe 100 health or whatever, and like your
like,
ATB's down. It's like, okay, I need to go in there and fight to get my ATB back, but if I do it, I'm gonna die. And then you start running around, but that doesn't get your ATB up. It's like,
yeah, I think that was like the only point where it kind of didn't work for me. But otherwise, I think the combat was really great and it worked really well. I think it was like a good balance, like you said, of just sort of like the RPG and the action game elements. Because the Final Fantasy 15 was the Final Fantasy game I played most recently. I finished it last year, and I feel like that game couldn't really decide if it wanted to be like an action game or an RPG, and it kind of struggled, I think, to balance those elements. I think this game managed to find a better balance of that and make it work.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk about the material real quick, because again, just like the original game, there's a lot of flexibility that goes in there. I thought that was cool. But at the same time, since this game has new mechanics, they added some new materia. Like there's a blocking materia, there's a first strike materia. I thought that was really cool. Even now, like I'm still like trying to think of like, okay, what are the best combinations? Like I'm trying to build the perfect character or whatever. And it's kind of cool that the game allows you to kind of build the characters. Obviously, characters, they kind of lean towards certain like proficiencies or whatever, but I do like the fact you could kind of mold characters the way you want, and knowing what battles are coming up next, you could select the materias and all that, how they're placed or whatever. So Gary, what do you think about the materia system, how they used it in this game, how they evolved it from the original?
Yeah, I think they did a great job because it definitely works within the mechanics of this game in particular. If I was to compare it to the OG Final Fantasy VII, though, I would pick the OG Final Fantasy VII because here's the thing, right? Because I actually like grinding in games sometimes, and one of the some of the memories I have of OG Final Fantasy is trying to because you could get the weapons that level up the materia faster and stuff. So I used to really enjoy leveling up my materia with the high growth weapons and stuff like that. But the thing is, in this game, there's not as many opportunities to grind. Like, even though it is a semi-open world game, you have to wait until certain parts of the game before you can really free roam and just fight enemies, at your own will. So you can't really do that in this game. So I understand why they didn't implement certain things like weapons that have high growth and things of that nature. But the way they did manage it in this game works for the game's mechanics, and they did actually offer you enough materia to experiment a lot and stuff. So that's good. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got to say.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think of the materia system?
Yeah, I think it worked. Like, to me, it definitely felt, similar to what they did in the original game. And I think it provided a nice, like, sort of way to customize the characters a bit more. And, I think for me, it was mostly just sort of making sure that I had enough of each of the material for each character. So that way I wasn't lacking in ability. So that way I always had, like, someone with a fire ability or someone with an electric, so that way I could counter each of the enemies. And I think it had a bit of a learning curve, but I think once I got into it, I think it gave some nice additions to the combat system and what you could do.
Yeah, Jonathan, what do you think of the materia?
I think much like Ryan said, I like the strategy that it introduced and the fact that it's so malleable. So like for me, as soon as I was able to get HP up materia, I was making sure I was evolving that and getting it up to where you could have 30% more. And then you could double stack them. So like I was putting 2 on whoever I would designate to be my healer tank, right? Just to make sure that they would never die. I was a little more lazy than Ryan was, though. Like I just depended on having 1 strong materia equipped for offensive magic. And usually it would be like based on whatever the enemies in the environment were, and knowing that there'd be a boss with that same element probably at the end. So if I were going through a bunch of mechs and I equipped the lightning materia and then just go from there. And then I was just trying to upgrade a bunch of support materia. So like that elemental one, healing stuff I wanted to prioritize. And it took a long time in the game for me to get weapons or items with more slots. And I think I played that part wrong. because I didn't upgrade weapons at all
Oh,
for
man.
a really long time, and I think I
Yeah,
made the same mistake I did with Final Fantasy X Spear Grid, where I didn't upgrade anybody until the Mi'ihen High Road. So
Yeah, I think I did that at points too, where I just forgot about the whole like sort of weapon upgrade system. So I would be like, oh wait, I have points, and I realized I have like 120 points that I can dump into a weapon to like upgrade it, and I was like, oh, I should have done this before. Like,
Yeah, I went a little ham with that because, like, oh, you could upgrade your weapon. So what's cool about this game was basically when you get a new weapon, each weapon has a very specific skill associated with it, and if you use that skill enough times, you could unlock it and you could use it on whatever weapon you want, right? So every time, like, I would get a new weapon and stuff, I would like unlock the ability real quick and then go back to whatever weapon I do prefer. Because I like, for example, like Cloud gets this literally a nail spike bat. You know, it's like the ability it has is cool. Like basically, it's like a baseball bat, but it's like it looks like a stupid bat. I don't want to run around with that, you know. So I just unlocked that real quick. And I remember, like, whenever I would get to a significant level, I would go to, I forget the kid's name, that little scientist dude and stuff. I would like. Yeah, Chadley. Yeah, I would go with my man Chadley, like, yo, relocate all my points, bro. I gotta upgrade my shit, you know. So I did that. I was lazy about it. I just hit like triangle just to, you know, just to get it all. Like, okay, you're the attack guy, you're the defense, you're healer, blah 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 blah. You know, so that was really cool doing that, and they gave you, you know, the game a little bit more, you know, like strategy and all that, and then choosing the materias and all that. That was a lot of fun, you know. That, you know, and again, by the end of the game, at least for me, I had a lot of different skills for everybody, you know.
yeah, I actually like KCube90 in the comments brought up a good point that like I didn't realize until like probably halfway through the game that you could, that like if you wanted to use a stronger version of a spell, so like Fira or Faraga or something like that, you had to like, you know, switch over in the menu to use that. So for like most of the game, I was just using like the basic like fire cure and doing like no damage, and then I was like, oh god, I could have used these like, you know, stronger versions of the spell for like many chapters now. Like.
Yeah, and I love the balance of that too. It's like the stronger the spell is, the longer it takes to cast. So I usually would use the second version of it, you know, like for, you know, Fira or whatever, because I'm like, Faraga's dope, but that shit takes forever. And this game loves to just knock you out of shit, you know.
No,
So
I think that was Aerith, and I'll make her run far in the back, and then I'll make her cast.
yeah. I think that was the thing that was, I felt like with like maybe the one thing about the combat system, I felt like I was burning through MP constantly in this game, and I had to keep using ethers and elixirs to like, because I would just use like 2 spells and then be burnt out, and then have to have them, you know, use ethers to restore their MP.
Yeah, that's
Did you put MP up materia on them?
I think on a couple of them, but I probably should have done that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, yo, like I was always hunting for those benches. Like, yo, where the bench at? I got to replenish my shit real quick. You know?
Very well conveniently placed benches.
Yeah. By the way, somebody pointed this out on Twitter. Like, if you look at the little logo on the benches, they're the logo of the original safe sign. Like, that is dope. That is so cool.
Oh, really? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun. But I was always like, yo, where the next bench at? Where the next bench at? You know? And then, like, if I knew where the bench was, I would, like, do a bunch of battles, come back, replenish, and then do some more and stuff. You know? So the combat, I really enjoyed it, you know? And I feel like I haven't really utilized it well. So it's like, even though I've beaten the game or whatever, I want to, you know, go back, because I want to do, like, a proper full playthrough now, because I did kind of have to rush it for the review. I'm like, I want to just get, you know, just play it right and at my own pace and all that, you know? All right, so anything else you guys want to jump into the gameplay before we get to graphics? Anything else you want to jump in with? I'm going to take that as a no, so we'll go into graphics. So yeah, this game, I didn't realize it was Unreal Engine 4 until like near the end of the game, right? Because it's interesting, because the Unreal Engine, especially last generation, had a very specific look. You could tell what games were Unreal, right? But I noticed this generation, specifically with Square-Enix, they've been using a lot, but you can't really tell it right away. It wasn't until I got to the underground laboratory where I'm like, hey, that looks like Unreal Green. Is this the Unreal Engine? Oh shit, it is the Unreal Engine, you know? But yeah, I thought the graphics were great. And I'm going to say something I might be, to quote Richard Bailey, I have a controversial statement. I think this game looks better than Advent Children. Like, Advent Children, they have more polygons or whatever, but like the detail, the colors, I think this game looks better than that, which is a testament, because it's just a regular game basically, you know, but it looks so good. There's a lot of details in there. There's just one problem I have with the graphics, which we'll probably get to in a little bit, but for the most part, like the characters, the world, and all the monsters, they all look so cool. And even little things like how you can see like the materia on your weapons and stuff when you're walking around. And even if you stay still, you see the like little glows and shit. It is so cool the way they did the graphics and stuff. And again, it's just amazing. It's the Unreal Engine doing this stuff, you know, these highly kind of stylized graphics, but also detailed at the same time, you know. Ryan, what'd you think of the graphics?
Yeah, I think overall, like the game looks beautiful, and I think like especially like during the opening segments of the game, like this game just really leaves like a very good first impression. And I have a feeling the thing you're going to bring up about what's not good is that like there are some texture issues in this
Yeah.
game where there's just some like really not detailed like look, and I think especially like some of the there are some of the parts like when you're up on the plate at the top overlooking the city, there's some like not great skyboxes where basically it just looks like a flat. I think it's just the thing is there's no like sort of illusion of depth or like detail, so it's just like a flat wall JPEG that doesn't really look great when you see it. Or I think the other things that stood out to me was like some of the lip syncing and animation on the NPCs for the side quests is not good. Like there's some really bad animation on some of the NPCs, and like I don't know, I think like everything that you're supposed to pay attention to and look at, like the character models and things, look gorgeous. They're fantastic. Like all the characters, the main characters look great, but then there's some moments where you're focusing on things that you're supposed to see that like aren't detailed. Like I think it was in one of the scenes when you're with Cloud and Aerith at Aerith's house in the garden, and like you see all her flowers and stuff like that, and they do a close up of one of her flowers, and it's just this like flat blurry flower that does not look good.
Potato, Aerith.
And it was just weird to like for them to focus the camera on this thing that just does not look great. So other than that, I think the game is gorgeous, and it's like easily one of the best looking. Other than those like moments, it's one of the best looking games I think I've played this generation. It looks phenomenal for the most part. Like,
yeah, I do want to say just on that, the one that bugged me the most was when you go to Cloud's apartment for the first time, like Tifa's there talking to him, and I'm not paying attention. I'm looking at the door behind him, like, why is that door so low res? What the fuck?
Yeah. There are some things that just do not look. They look like PS2 quality that are like not good looking. But
Like,
I mean, there are things that like you're probably not going to notice as much, so that's why. But yeah,
like I'm waiting for the door to for the textures just to pop in. That's an Unreal tell too, by the way. Like when textures don't pop in, but I'm waiting the whole time, bro. I'm like, yo, what's up with that door? Like this is a cutscene. Like you would have paid attention to that. That was kind of weird, But other than that, like you said, overall great. Gary, what do you think of the graphics?
Oh yeah, I pretty much echo, everything Ryan said. I mean, for the most part, the game looks great. There are some like really stunning looking environments and scenes in the game. I haven't seen Advent Children in a long time, so I'm not sure about your statement about it looking better, but I could see why that might be the case, because this does look great for the most part. Now, obviously, there are those texture issues that you guys just discussed as well, and I have a feeling that Square-Enix is going to heavily advertise a next gen upgrade of this game. So they're probably going to fix a lot of those issues, when it comes out on PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that there was some limitations from the hardware that some of those things probably would have fixed. Yeah,
that's kind of interesting. Jonathan, what do you think of the graphics?
I've never been one to like. The only time that I'll ever care about. Let me erase what I just said. So, the textures really bothered me, but I felt like they had to delay the game for a month, right? Remember, it was supposed to come out a month before April 10th?
Yeah. And
so I was thinking, well, what could they possibly be fixing? And then the game came out, and then that was still an issue. And I was like, you know what? Whatever they had gone through, I feel like they made the perfect decision as to balance what was because like the character models are great, but like some of the background stuff and the textures and stuff, it's just like, what the hell? So like, I'm just glad we got what we got, because overall still a solid 9.5 out of 10 for me. The graphics though, it's like, and this is where I was getting in with my original statement, like I've never cared about whether it was this engine or that engine. If they could make this kind of game move like with Unreal moving forward, then just stick with that. Forget your crystal tools or whatever.
Agreed.
Like they keep on trying to make that happen, and it's like, fetch, it's not gonna happen. So like, just make good games. I'm here for it.
Yeah, like the whole Luminous
and like sacrifice something here that is very noticeable. Fine, I guess. Like, maybe it'll get better next generation. But for me, the big moment was like that whole sun lamp. When we were supposed to go be meeting Biggs on the elevator over Midgar, and we had to like disable the lamps first.
Yeah.
And it's like they're like, yeah, we're really high above the slums, and then you look down and it's like womp womp. So like Ryan said, just a JPEG of a city below you, and it's like there's no depth of field, there's no risk here. So Yeah.
Oh man, now you got me thinking about the next gen version because you know it's coming. The upgrade's gonna come, but we'll talk about that another time. Anyway, man, let's get to this part we really want to talk about, man. Chapter 18. But before that, right? Okay, so for the most part, this game stuck true to the original, right? Except for, and Jonathan, you could tell me the name of the ghosts. What were the name of those ghosts?
Those ghosts came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
The,
whatever.
the Dementors.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna call them the ghosts,
Oh,
right?
you're talking about the Dementors. I thought you were talking about the graveyard.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
also the Dementors came out of nowhere as well.
Yeah,
So
but yeah, whatever that you guys know what we're talking about. So anyway, so these ghosts kept popping up. That was the one thing I'm like, I don't remember that from the original. What the hell's going on here? So these things would pop up. As I learned later, they would pop up during scenes when the game was about to take a major deviation from the original. They would always prevent things. And then later on, Red 13 tells us like, oh yeah, those things are pretty much like curators of fate. They make sure that destiny stays within a specific track, right? And one of the biggest moments was, what would fucking, I don't know if it's the real Sephiroth, but Sephiroth, let's just say, kills Barrett. You're like, oh shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. Then a ghost comes in, heals them and stuff. So we had this happen throughout the entire time. And then when you get to the end, right, when you get to the highway and stuff, in the original you leave and stuff, whatever, right? The fucking ghosts they built this giant tornado wall. Like, okay, this is interesting. And then you go through this wall and you go through these crazy ass battles that was not even the original. And that's when things go insane. You fight these like 3 apparitions that are, if you look at them, if you hit the analyzed materia, it says, oh, they're they're from the future and they're trying to prevent the past from being changed. Like, okay, and one of them has a sword, the other one has a gun, the other one fights with hands. Like, kind of like your party members and stuff. Sephiroth shows up at the end. It's like, yo, Sephiroth, he was not in the Midgar section. Not really. He was mentioned and all that, but he was not mentioned. Like the first time you kind of get a sense of Sephiroth is after you leave Midgar and you see like, oh, he killed that fucking snake that's been bothering us. He speared it or whatever. But this one, he's an omnipresent thing. And then you fight him at the end. My original theory was, before I saw some of the videos, I was like, okay, I guess they threw Sephiroth in there as the final boss just because they're like, yo, we don't know if this next game's coming out in 6 years. So here's Sephiroth, that'll tide you guys over. But we've learned, and we're going to discuss this. There may be something else that it could be Sephiroth that we know. It's and then the whole Zack thing. I'm trying to control myself right now because this is fucking crazy. So basically, the game just goes off in a whole other thing, and even at the end, the game says the unknown journey begins. So what do you guys think of like that turn with Chapter 18? And by the way, for you guys who don't know, I mean, if you guys are watching this, spoiler alert, without playing the game, what the fuck is wrong with you? But Chapter 18, the PlayStation prevents you from even sharing that shit. And even the embargo I had is like, you could talk whatever you want. Don't mention 18. I was like, what happens at 18? And I play, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now, But yeah, Jonathan, what'd you think about, that Chapter 18, where it goes and all that other shit?
So let me just start by saying the game was really great. I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake all until Chapter 18, and then all of a sudden I really had to find myself exercising optimism, right? Like, and there's a lot there, Tony. So, like, when you were like, the ghosts were like, oh shit, that's not supposed to happen, so they brought back to life. That's basically Square Enix telling you, you're the ghosts.
Yes.
You're the ghosts.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched so many videos, and they've all said the same thing, like, the whispers are the fandom trying to keep canon. So aside from that, then you have I really wish I hope that this part can just be open because like I need help here. I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna be all over the place too. Basically, this is what 18 to me is, to answer the question, it is Square Enix saying, and not just saying, the Final Fantasy VII that is over with and we're going in a new direction. They're doing that, but they're also like setting up a lot of craziness that like I just hope with Nomura at the helm, they can reel his ass back a little bit and be like, okay, we're gonna do this, but please Nomura, don't put it in Kingdom Hearts territory where it takes 13 games between now and then to do it, and then there's reflections of people. Everybody has a shadow version. Everybody has a nobody version. It's like, girl, it just needs to be what it's going to be. And what I hope for it to be, and I've prepared for this, I want us, the viewers, okay, follow me here. I want us, the players, to be Thanos in Endgame. What do I mean by that? Remember when they started going into all that times shit, and then they thought they were going to get Thanos in the past?
Yeah.
But Thanos was hip to the shit. And he was like, wait a second. These motherfuckers from the future have done something, and now it's up to me to stop their asses because I must have won, and I need to ensure that my timeline is the one that plays out. Mm-hmm. Thanos was smart. Okay. He figured the shit out. So what I'm saying is, in chapter 18, they're basically telling you the Final Fantasy VII that you know, the characters are interpreting this to be the dark timeline. So they're going to do everything they can, including defeat Destiny, to not let it happen. But I'm like, what's so wrong about the quote dark timeline, the original? Aerith's plan worked out, Sephiroth was defeated, and the planet was saved. So unless Square Enix is trying to play it as some kind of, oops, they misinterpreted the good ending and they're barreling towards bad ending, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's where I leave room for optimism, because we're about to be told a story, that's for sure, and it's going to be something that even OG fans can look forward to and not know the outcome. But how crazy is this shit about to become?
Yeah, and no, like you said, the more and it's already getting set up in here, right? We have an alternate timeline potentially. We have like we're gonna go down a different road. Characters may live. Aerith may not die now. You know, Cloud may die. Like we could go because again, those ghosts aren't really around anymore. And then you have the possibility of like it looks like Sephiroth may be from like the original like timeline, and he knows that he lost, so he's trying to change some shit.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So, and someone in the comments said it, that Sephiroth seems like he knew everything. But if you remember in chapter 18, when you get to the end of the road,
yeah,
and Sephiroth is coming down out of the sky, Aerith looks dead ass at him and is like, "You're wrong, and everything about you is wrong." So I think even Aerith knows. I feel like Aerith. I think so. The original Final Fantasy VII ends, and Sephiroth is dead, and Aerith has won. Aerith is chilling in the afterlife. She's in the live stream.
Yes.
She's done what she needs to do. But in Advent Children, which I don't know is canon or not anymore, it shows that Sephiroth can still come back. So if Sephiroth was like, wait a second, let me fuck with these timelines and go in the back, then Aerith is forced to move. And who's to say, because Aerith in the original was able to commune with the planet, like there was hella shit in the original that Aerith knew, and she just didn't tell us. She knew she was going to die, and I think the planet told her how to use her white materia. The planet told her, girl, like, we got your back in case the holy doesn't work, which plays out in the original ending. So I'm saying Sephiroth must have done something, which he kind of leads on in the ending. He's like, Cloud, join me, and let's change destiny together. I'm like, first of all, who are you? Like, you're not the same Sephiroth that's sitting up at the Northern Crater right now trying to get all the Jadova cells back together to come back to life. You are a Sephiroth that's been around the block before.
Yeah, that's what I think.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Gary, what'd you think of Chapter 18 and I call it the rebuild of Final Fantasy, right? Like, that's what I'm calling it. Like Evangelion, the rebuild of Evangelion. This is a rebuild. And it makes the whole remake moniker take on a different dimension. Like, this is a remake. Like, we're not just remaking a game, we're making everything right now. So, yeah, what would you think of that, Gary?
Yeah, just like Jonathan, I'm very, very conflicted about it because on one hand, you know, you guys told us we were getting a remake of Final Fantasy VII, and that's why I expect to get, you know, like a shot-for-shot remake of the original. But also on the other hand, I'm sort of, you know, a little excited about the fact that they are kind of, you know, changing things and there might possibly be a different outcome. And the way I interpret it is like is kind of Aerith versus Sephiroth, because you know, like Jonathan said, I feel like Aerith knows something, and you know, Sephiroth is obviously, you know, he's the main one trying to change things right now, it seems like. But so I want to see how far they push the envelope with this one and how it, you know, alters the story moving forward. But at the same time, I don't want them to change too much, because when we get part 2, you know, whenever we get it, I still want to experience a lot of the same stuff that we experienced in the original, and I want it to be the same, you know, because like moments like, you know, Aerith's death and everything. Like if they change that, then I don't think I can honestly, you know, be a fan of that decision if they, you know, if they change that death. Because, you know, as someone who writes and reads a lot of books and stuff, like moments like that are very important, you know, to a story. And, you know, that decision in the original game to kill Aerith was major at that point in time. So I don't want them to change that. I think they should keep that. So Nomura, I don't think he should get too crazy with all these changes. I think, you know, they should continue to kind of do what they did here, where the whispers kind of keep things on track and you know, the story unfolds how we expect it to. But, you know, I guess at the end of every game, you can kind of deviate a little bit and, you know, set up the next game or whatever it is, wherever they're going with this thing. You know, they can have certain moments that they add in there, but I think they should still, you know, give us what we're expecting, because we are all expecting a shot-for-shot remake of the game that we love. So you have to give us that, you know, before you start to get too crazy with all these different changes, you know, that they're trying to go with. And I think the ultimate outcome is probably to have Aerith and Zack be alive at the end of the game somehow. So maybe she does die in part 2, but then at the end, there's a way that they bring her back or something. So I think that's where they're going, where, you know, they want Zack and Aerith to still be alive at the end. But yeah, it's just how they get there. It will be the most important thing for me.
All right, Ryan.
Yeah, I think like I definitely like I think from what Jonathan and Gary said, like I think as hardcore Final Fantasy fans, like I can understand why people would be, I guess, reacting this way to like the, you know, the way that this story is playing out and different from the original game. You know, personally, like I'm not like a big Final Fantasy person. Like I enjoy the games, but I'm not like super hardcore into the lore and the history of the games or anything. You know, so I think for me, like I found the ending like pretty interesting, and I think especially just because the way that, like, you know, I think no matter which direction Square took, whether they decided to just sort of literally follow the events of the original Final Fantasy or completely change it, like they would have run into issues. I think fans would have reacted really strongly either way. So I think to me, this felt like a decent middle ground between sort of pleasing both fan bases, between, you know, tying it to the events of the original game, but also trying to make this remake, you know, forward its own path and sort of be its own experience. You know, so I think we have to see how that plays out in the next part of this, or however many 7 parts of this that there are. But I think that, you know, to me, I think they did a pretty good job with the ending and with the experience as a whole, making it feel like a complementary experience to the original game, rather than just trying to be the original game, but polished up and, you know, literally remade.
Yeah. One of the things I was confused about at first was because, remember, this was originally pitched as a episodic game, right? And they dropped that for like 2 years now. The whole episodic thing is just Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm like, okay, well, so what's going to happen with the other subsequent sequels? Now I kind of understand it. Like, it seems like this game that we have right now, this is the actual remake. After this, the games are not remakes anymore. We're going down a new path, right? And I'm still conflicted about that, but it's 60-40. 40% of me is like, oh man, it kind of sucks that we're not going to get, you know, like a shot for shot remake like Gary said. And I know people have been waiting for years. That's what they want. They want the original game, but with these awesome new graphics. And we've seen, you know, what that could be in this game. It's like those same moments that we remember, but just, it's just interesting. Like the moments in this game look the way they do in your mind's eye, right? That all these years. So that is so cool. So it's sad to lose that. But as I said at the top of the show, I was never like, I didn't care if they remade this game or not. So I'm actually more, and it's weird because I'm usually a continuity guy. I don't like when people fuck with things, when they adapt with things. I don't like that. But with this, I'm like, I'm actually kind of excited about where this goes. I don't know what the hell they're going to do now. I don't know. But at the same time, there's trepidation there because this is Nomura. This dude could go fucking crazy, you know? So if they could balance it where it's like, you know, it's kind of weird and stuff, but not too weird, especially when the timelines and alternate realities, all this other stuff, I think it could be cool because it is kind of like awesome that we don't know what to expect. But at the same time, I hope they still give you those moments. They don't deviate too far because, like Gary said, you want to balance it out so everybody's happy. But at the same time, Ryan, you mentioned this, no matter which way they went, Square-Enix was gonna get some shit anyway. Oh, you stuck too close to the original. Oh, this is too different. Like it's like a rock and a hard place type of thing. Again, and there's also that part of me. It's like I applaud them for changing things, but at the same time, I'm also like, yo, what are you guys doing? People win for years, man, and you're changing shit. So again, I'm very conflicted.
I feel like they would have wound up in the Star Wars problem where you had like Last Jedi, where it was like, oh, it made things too different, it took too many risks, but then you would have run into the other way would have been like the Rise of Skywalker problem, where it was like, oh, you stuck too close to the original material and tried to make things too similar to the past. So I think that, to me, I think this felt like a bit of a middle ground between those two paths.
Yeah, but go ahead.
For the people that want to keep want that 1-for-1 remake, at this point, after what they've given us, the only way that that's going to happen is if they've introduced this new mechanic of Sephiroth being able to go into the past and Aerith chasing him, and them being like these two superpower gods or whatever, and the Whispers still being there, trying to keep everything on track, and then occasionally, throughout future installments, someone tries to interfere, but it's kind of like this game where like you are constantly trying to stay on this path, and with what the characters know, or at least what they think, they don't want that because Cloud has a vision of Aerith dying.
Right. Yeah.
But like it just doesn't make sense to me because Aerith knows she has to die, and so like she's never gonna flat out tell him like I have to do this for the sake of the planet, which I think she does say that in the original. But like I just don't see that happening. I hate to say it, but I just don't. And the worst case scenario then is Nomura goes crazy, and we start getting a whole bunch of extra stuff. Like the fact that Zack is still alive now, or at least exists in some timeline, that's a real wild card as to where this story can go.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, because the thing is with Zack, like him dying is such a huge part of Cloud's progression, you know, in the beginning of Final Fantasy VII. So it's like, you know, undoing that, it's like, wow, you know, that's a big deal in itself. So, and the fact that they did that makes me think that they will take away Aerith's death as well. But go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, no, I actually lost my train of thought. I was reading what K-Cube said. He's like, I want Sid and you know, to come in. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, no, he's right. It's like they're going in this new direction and it could derail very, very fast. So that's why I'm a little hesitant, but at the same time, I am still more excited. It's like, oh, where are they going? And because this is the way I see it, I'm like, hey, we're going to get actual new Final Fantasies now, guaranteed, you know, because, you know, Square-Enix takes forever, you know. I just don't know what that, I mean, actually, no, we talked about the Jonathan, like, is this going to affect 16? But that's a whole other topic right there. So at least.
So you think the next one is going to be like completely new? Like
that's what I think. Yeah. The way, based off of what we have here, I think the reason this is just called remake and no number is because the next one's going to be on Final Fantasy VII something, you know, a different kind of name at the end. I don't think the remake, that's done. We're not remaking the game anymore.
I think they're done remaking stuff because they like, now this is, I said best case, worst case scenario. Now what I think is going to happen is it's a brand new game. Yeah. Like you don't go like in OG, they get to the end of the freeway and they're like, what are we going to do now? Let's go to Calm and like talk about Sephiroth. They've already like gone to heaven and like floated across the sky and fought giant the tutorial boss from Kingdom Hearts. So like they and have maxed out materia and everything. So like you're a story writer, you know pacing, and like what part 2 they're gonna be like, okay, no more Faraga. Like
yeah, they're gonna just reset everything. I'm just imagining Mass Effect 2. It's like, oh, you're reset now. You know, you got to do it all over again. You know, that would suck. Yeah. But I don't know. You know, I mean, we obviously don't know if they're gonna just have progression. That'd be kind of cool. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you could hit level 50, maybe you could hit 99 the next one, then 999 later. Who knows? And by the way, we don't know how many installments are coming. We have absolutely no idea. It could be 3, it could be 7. Who the fuck knows? You know. But they're definitely going in a different direction. I just hope it doesn't take so long this time. You know, now it's like
the assets and everything. I feel like it's just going to be like building DLC for them now, hopefully.
Yeah, and now they have next gen systems, you know, so hopefully, you know, things will like come out faster, look better. So hopefully, but yeah, again, I'm excited, but I'm also like, yo, don't go too crazy, Nomura. You better chill, brother.
I'm hoping they don't do any more than 3. I think 3 is like the most number of games that people will be willing to put up with. I don't think they could do more than that.
You mean you don't want Final Fantasy 7.05 decode?
No, I
magic.
want them to. I don't want them to. I don't want them to Kingdom Hearts this. Yeah.
That could be the worst case there.
Oh man! All right. By the way, we actually did that kind of fast. So yeah, any final thoughts you guys want to share before we wrap up here?
Well, I'm still. I don't want to close that part of the discussion yet.
Okay, yeah, we can keep going. You know, it's all right.
So to Gary, like seeing what we saw with this part, what are some things that you definitely want to look forward to seeing in if they were to keep it OG7 again in this next part? For me, I want to see what Junon looks like fleshed out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Junon, Temple of the Ancients, what else? What's the Golden Saucer? You know, stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
like
that's gonna be big. Yeah.
Yeah, they could do some amazing things, and you know, Cosmo Canyon as well. Yeah, basically.
Oh, go ahead.
Basically, if they do the part 2 and they follow the original timeline, I want it to get all the way up to Aerith's death and then kind of end off there. So
yeah, that's what I was going to ask you: is how would you pace the second installment?
Right. Yeah. So that would be my perfect, you know, episode 2, I guess, would be that cutoff, you know, where she dies. But yeah, I mean, because there's some amazing stuff they could do based on what they did in this game and how they expanded certain things. Like now they're out in the open world, so that's another thing too. I would love a lot more open world segments because I think that's what this game was lacking. Like you had to wait until certain parts of the game before you could really free roam and just, you know, take things at your own pace and go around and fight enemies or whatever. So I'm, you know, if they were to do part 2 like that, I would like a lot more free roam segments, you know, where you can just grind and explore and things of that nature, sort of like Final Fantasy 15. Because that's what I loved about 15. Like the first half of the game was pretty much like a big free roam. So having that in a Final Fantasy VII, you know, aesthetic would be amazing for me.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my podcast host, Carlos Romero, who's actually in the chat right now. And he was saying that to him, it kind of, the way they're doing this, it feels like Final Fantasy 13 to him. Like basically this game is, you know, the Grand Pulse, right? Like, or not Grand Pulse. What's the name of the floating shit? You know, the floating city they had. Cocoon, yeah. So basically, this game is Cocoon, right? A lot of corridors, a lot of truncated little areas, and then the next game is going to be Grand Pulse, this big sprawling world. And Gary, I'm with you on that. And now that we have new consoles coming out, right? We could have that giant open world because we were able to explore the world in the original stuff, but it was obviously very low res and all that other stuff. So it would be so cool to just go out there and go ham, potentially hours and hours, like basically like. Final Fantasy VII as like Red Dead Redemption 2 was like this fucking giant ass world, and then with the potential, I don't know if they're going to do it in the next game, but the potential of eventually getting your airship and flying around and stuff, that'd be cool. But hey, Jonathan, to answer your question, the one thing I want to see more of, I want to see Wutai, right? What was cool about this game was, and I don't know if this was in the original so much, but like they kept mentioning there's a war with Wutai. Midgar and Wutai are at war with each other, and there's soldiers dying and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And they even try to blame Wutai for Avalanche's activities and stuff. So I'm like, I want to see more of that. But also, I just want to explore it because I really like the way Wall Market was done. There were so many nooks and crannies in there, and it was just cool going through that. So just imagine Wutai, with a similar kind of aesthetic going on, exploring that and checking out that culture, which is completely different than Midgard. That would be so cool to see that, and maybe potentially get into the ancients or whatever. Maybe seeing that, even if it's a flashback or whatever, exploring all that because they gave you a little glimpse of that what that world was like. Like, oh, that is so cool. I want to see that. So basically, what I want from the second game is like just because this game did a great job of expanding the story and characters. But the world, I'm talking about the physical restraints of the world, were still pretty small. I want to see that opened up completely. That would be so cool. You already know they're going to go ham with the saucer. They're going to go like the mini games out the ass there. So that's going to be cool. And Gary, I agree with you. I think Aerith dying, that'd be the perfect way to end that game. Like that's the perfect cutoff point because people are like, oh shit. But then again, if she dies, or it could be somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't know where the hell this is going, but yeah, I definitely want a big sprawling open world on next gen system. That would be crazy.
Yeah, they changed up a lot, and this was part of the change that I liked because I thought they were setting up for something less crazy. But Shinra was blaming Wutai on a whole bunch of stuff, making them seem like they were a bunch of terrorists and stuff, and really playing up the fake news aspect of Shinra's messaging so that they could go to war, and because war means money. And so it gave them a reason to push forward for their promised land journey, which is Shinra's main thing. Still, even at the end of this game, President Rufus thinks that he's going to find the promised land. But the only thing that narrative kind of rubs shoulders in the wrong way with, or steps on the toes of OG, is that in OG, Wutai, first of all, they weren't played up like that. Yes, there was a war like 17 years ago or whatever, but it was over. And present day Wutai is kind of like a pacifist nation that was turned into a tourist destination by Shinra. So they're really like their balls got chopped off. So like the fact that they're playing them up to be like this equally competitive nation of terrorists, it seemed like it was going in a neat direction. And regardless of this current ending that we got with Remake, I don't know. As for me, I would like for part 2 to end where Meteor is summoned, with a good midpoint being Cloud handing over the black materia to Sephiroth. But then, like, the way that they handled this game with just Midgar and how they really fleshed out Wall Market and then the different sectors and neighborhoods with a bunch of quests, like, they're going to have to go hard in this next one because, like, in order to tell that much of the story, like, there's a lot of cities. There's Costa del Sol, there's the boat ride, there's Junon, there's Fort Condor. Like, you have to go around the whole world, then go to the bottom of it to the Temple of the Ancients, and then go up to basically the North Pole, the capital of the Ancients. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, in that cutscene where they were in like the Disney ride and it showed the Ancients, did it show like what the capital of the Ancients used to look like with trees all around it, and then it took all the trees away and showed the bony looking structure that we remember from OG?
I don't remember the bony structure, but I do remember when it was like lush and verdant. That's what they showed, like basically when it was like just full on paradise. That's what I remember. I don't remember the bony, like decayed ruins that we remember in the little Disney ride, as you call it,
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, definitely between this game and the next one, especially if they go with this open world thing, like, I really don't know how they'll pace it. I told how I hope they pace it. Gary has told how he hopes they pace it. But like thinking about how they compacted so much into just Midgar, and then thinking about, what they would need to do for the second one to include open world, it's like, wow, what are we gonna get? Like, regardless of where the story goes.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting for sure. Because again, we don't really know where the story's going, so they could just do whatever. But I would definitely like, even if it's not the entire world, some kind of open world thing. Because yeah, that's a lot of side quests, and that's one thing I forgot to touch on. I liked how the side quests actually, helped the world feel more alive and lived in. You felt more sympathetic, empathetic towards the characters. So we need to have that again. We need to have that because that went a long way. And I like how the game they threw just enough side quests where they felt good, but it wasn't overwhelming like The Witcher, where it's like, all right, yo, chill. It's too much, But yeah, that would be cool. But Ryan, what do you want to see in the next game or subsequent games?
Yeah, I think like Jonathan said, I think it'll be interesting to see how they approach, because obviously like once you leave Midgar in the original Final Fantasy VII, that's kind of you're really only seeing like the tip of the iceberg from the Midgar section of the original game, because then the world just opens up so much more. I think my only hope is that they don't go like Final Fantasy 15 crazy with it, and because I felt like the world was just way too big in Final Fantasy 15, so I hope that they find sort of a balance between because I liked the sort of more linear direction of this game, but it also did leave these more open areas where you could explore and everything. I think for me, it's mostly more about the characters. Like I'm interested, like a couple people in the comments brought up that like I'm interested to see if they want to introduce like Yuffie and Kate and like those Vincent, and especially because like Red 13 only really shows up at the very end of this game, so I think I'm interested to see them introduce those characters more and what they're, especially now that the timeline has shifted so much and the story could play out so differently. I guess how those characters will play into the story of the next game. As far as like the story, I think it probably makes sense that if they sort of end on Aerith's death or whatever the equivalent of that is in this game, however they decide to approach it, I think that seems like it makes sense for a good point to leave off with until the next chapter of this. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, as far as based on how how chapter 18 ends and how the whole sort of timeline can be rewritten for the rest of the series. I think part 2. I think once if and when they introduce the sort of more open world parts of the game, how that affects the next part of the story.
Yeah, one thing I'm wondering right now is like with the gameplay, do we see any giant like deviations from the core gameplay they established in this one? Because like you figure with a new game they'd add something new, but at the same time the gameplay in this was pretty good for what it was, so I don't know if they want to mess with it too much. Plus you want to keep it cohesive since it's going to be a bunch of games that are all linked together. Like, do we expect any like giant gameplay changes with the next one?
I don't think I would expect like major gameplay changes. I think maybe just like with the whole, like if they do make it a more of an open world sort of experience, like, getting around the areas and introducing the air shit, like that type of thing, I think is maybe like the bigger changes that they would make, and maybe changing up like, I guess, because if they do introduce more characters, then I guess, I don't know if they introduce a bigger party and you could have more characters at your disposal. But otherwise, I feel like they have a pretty solid foundation to work with for the next installments of this series.
Yeah, because potentially, I mean, Red 13, I think we could say he's going to be playable, but are we going to get Vincent? Are we going to Yuffie? That would be pretty interesting because, like we mentioned before, every character in this game plays very different from one another, right? So it would be, I'm hoping that we get more of these characters, different gameplay styles, mixing and matching and all that with the, with the characters that we currently have. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe because obviously the original game was 3 characters, this one 3 characters too. Maybe they should open up to 4 just to give you a little bit something else. That'd be pretty interesting if they do that. But yeah, I was thinking about that. Yeah, I don't know if they want to change it too much, but they have to do something just to make sure the gameplay isn't 100% exactly the same. And again, I keep referencing the 13 series. Like they had 3 of those, and each of them they changed things around, but they didn't deviate too crazily. So
yeah, I think they'll definitely add things on top of it, but I don't think they're gonna. I don't see them really changing the basic like core structure of it.
Yeah, Jonathan, what do you think?
I think one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Jonathan, go first. Oh, Gary. Okay, go ahead, Gary.
Oh, I think one thing they can do as far as the battle system is because, like, in this game, if I remember correctly, there wasn't any part where you could actually choose your party. So, like, you could say, "Oh, I want to use Aerith instead of Barrett" or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it's all kind of predetermined who's in your party. But one thing they could do in the next one is have it, because you'll have so many characters, right? So you'll have to pick and choose which ones you actually want in your party. So I think one thing they can do is make it so you can do certain combinations with certain characters. So like, the characters are more interlinked and they're able to play off one another's abilities with combos and stuff. So that way you could really mix and match, and, it feels different, with each different party that you create. So, that's something they could maybe play with, I think.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right. It's like it would be so cool if we could actually just mix and match as we want. Because this game, they kind of locked you into characters, and there was a lot of points where you couldn't even use a full party. That was a little frustrating at points. It's like, hey, I finally got a full party. Oh, they took it away again. It's like, all right, man. Anyway, Jonathan, what do you want to see gameplay wise?
I really hope that they do implement in the second one. This switch out. In the first one, it was like, oh, here's a cell phone, a PHS. So whenever you want, like, call us up and then we'll switch your party. And I hope that they keep all the mechanics there. The battle system's tight. It's really good. With the summons even, they're on the field. And now we know that with this current generation, they're capable of making a huge world. We saw that with Final Fantasy 15. So now they just need to recreate that with Final Fantasy VII's world. And instead of a car, you could use a chocobo this time.
Yes.
A team of chocobos to get around the continent. And like seamless integration with battle, just like 15 and Kingdom Hearts and all the others that are action like that. And make the damn thing. Like, I just it doesn't have to be everything's not Midgar. Midgar is the hugest city in that universe. So now we're walking into towns in real time, and then and the quests might be out in the field. Um, but I think they have the capability of making a big open world and a 2020 generation version of JRPG world map that we've wanted, that we don't need to do these hallway simulators anymore. It was necessary for this first one. It was Midgar and it's very urban and whatever, but really looking forward to the open world and seeing what they can do. And if Square stays on this innovative train, then I'm sure they'll deliver something that we have not seen before.
Yeah, I just hope with the next one, since it's on new systems or whatever, SSDs and all that, that we're gonna have a lot less. I'm gonna call it crevice loading. You know, so there's a lot of that. Like, let's go through this crevice. Like, okay, we see what you guys are doing here. You know,
Yeah.
So hopefully, it'll be cool. I'm wondering though, like, will we get a true open world or will it just be a big world? I'm thinking about Dragon Quest XI, right? Another Square Enix game where it was big maps, right? But they were not. You couldn't really go from one to the other. Like, would that be acceptable in 2022? You know, if we're being optimistic, or do we want to see like the Witcher, Red Dead Redemption type of map? Like, what would be preferable? I want a big ass world, Red Dead Redemption
I
type
want
of
the
map.
second one.
You know, I want a map so big I could wrap around the world and stuff. Like, okay, like, you know, I got to go to Wutai. Like, I could go east or west, whatever direction I want. Like, that's what I want to see. You know. By the way, I was just thinking about it, like, because you know how in the original you get the chocobo that could actually walk on water. That would look kind of silly with these kind of graphics. I don't know if they're going to keep that or not. You know, because you know you kind of lose a little bit of that silliness with the realism and stuff. But yeah, I want the big ass world. That's what I want. You know, like, I want to get lost in, like, if Midgar was that dope, I want to experience the whole thing now. You know, let me get lost in that shit, and then Gary, you can have grinding because I know you missed that in this one. You know,
Oh yeah.
Well, the original game does, like the original game that has ideas in it that could be fleshed out a lot more in whatever we get coming up. Not just chocobos, but if you remember in OG, there was a car that the purpose of it was to get you over quicksand.
Yeah.
But they could make that into a whole thing. Finally, we all remember the High Wind.
Yes.
And like just getting ready for that. The little crashed plane that allowed you to get around shallow water.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that is there in terms of navigating an open world in a limited manner that they could make something the size of Final Fantasy 15, and they could work their fun JRPG. You can't go here yet magic to where, like, you know, we get to see what we're working with.
Yeah, and you know what? As weird and limiting as that sounds, I kind of want them to employ that in the beginning. It's like, we're going to give you this much of the world, but not yet, and then you get a little more. You know,
The first time I saw that was Grand Theft Auto 3.
yeah, I
But,
love
like,
that.
you
I
can stay
love
in
that.
this neighborhood,
Yeah.
but it is an open world, but we'll unlock it later.
Yeah, I always love that because it gives you something to anticipate. You know, like nowadays, open world's like, go nuts. It's like, no, give me like some kind of structure here. So hopefully they'll do that. I mean, it's a Japanese RPG, so I'm going to assume they're probably going to do that. They're a little bit more structured than like Western RPGs. Like, go, do your thing. You know, man, what else? Yeah, the High Wind would actually be dope. And seeing all those cities, that would be really cool, man. But I'm wondering, it's like, again, how long are we going to wait for this shit? You know, actually, like, again, you know, we have the assets now, so hopefully it won't take forever. Because, again, after playing this and after seeing the ending, I'm like, I need that follow-up, bro. I need that follow-up.
Yeah.
And like you said, Jonathan, it's like, if, you know, we want to see an expansion of it, and if they do the expansions, I'm talking about characters, the world, if they do it on the same quality as this one, we're in for a treat, man. We really are, you know. Gary, you gonna say something?
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah, so no, I'm obviously excited. Anything else you guys want to bring up? Because I went through all my points and stuff, but we still got time to talk. You know, by the way, if you guys in the chat want to ask us anything real quick, go, you know, feel free to throw it in there. You know, here's one thing. This is for the future. Like, do you think they're ever going to have like a big compilation that collects all the games? You know,
That would be a lot of hours of gameplay.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
maybe like a shelf collection or however many there are. So maybe in that sense, but like maybe not one big game. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
what you're
I don't think-
asking.
No, I'm talking about like, you know, basically a collection with like, for the sake of argument, let's just say 4 games. Like a collection has like 4 games in it. You know, like, do you think they'll do something like that eventually? Because I can see them
think they
doing that.
will.
Did they do that for the 13 trilogy?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if that series was
I don't think
popular
they
enough
did,
for
no.
that, to be honest.
No, I feel like
Once Lightning gets her anniversary, they'll do that or something.
Yeah, right. Go ahead, Ryan.
no, yeah, I don't know. I think that because I feel like they're kind of designing these to be sort of like distinct games. So I don't know if I would see them making like necessarily like maybe a trilogy collection sort of thing, maybe, but like not. I don't think they would like literally pack them together as like one and make it like a full game type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially I think because Square puts most of their games out on like everything, so I wouldn't necessarily see them doing that. So
Yeah, K Cube says at Square Enix, look how they treat Kingdom Hearts, milk baby. So
Yeah.
he thinks they're gonna do it. I agree with that. Like they just recently released a collection for Kingdom Hearts. Like here's everything. It's like all right.
Yeah, the all-in-one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how many of these have we already gotten? Did they have something similar for like what before 3 was out? It was a bunch of shit.
Or like
They did the remix collections that had like 1 and 2 and all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
for the very, very far down the future, we're talking in-game material,
Yeah.
in-story material, if we're going to think that OG might be intact. I need to see how they're going to do Bizarro Sephiroth, that battle, because back in the day, it was like, I mean, so the game before that was Final Fantasy VI, and the unique thing there was before you fight Kefka for the last time, you get to order all of your characters how you wanted them to come out after one died and stayed dead for too long. Final Fantasy VII, it was, okay, you're about to fight Bizarro Sephiroth and you have 9 characters and you're going to attack them from different sides. So, like, you had to choose different teams and then you could switch to a different team mid-battle, like when the game let you, to attack different parts of him. And then the other thing I want to see is, like, how are we going to get a 2022 or 2023 version of Sephiroth Supernova?
Yeah, that's why I can't wait to
yeah.
see. I can't wait for that.
Just
Yeah.
like, how are they going to, because that was a whole ass cutscene in the middle of the game. And like the way they handled certain types of attacks and that they've been handling certain types of attacks like that in these types of games is like real time in battle. It'll just cut away and it'll show the enemy doing their thing. But are we going to get a whole ass movie of the galaxy being destroyed?
Oh my
Like
god.
in this game,
Yeah.
he does use meteor or whatever in this fantasy world. And like it's got a 10-second timer. And if I played it and I let it run out, which is really hard to do, and it's just game over, instant game over.
Yeah, like that would be kind of silly. It's like the whole solar system just gets destroyed every single time he casts this shit. So I'm, it's a little silly. We got a question here from Eurocard9. He says, if Sephiroth is coming from the future / other timeline, then do you think Zack will do the same? Also, do you think Zack coming back gives more credence to keep Aerith alive?
I think it's all the more better to kill her again in front of him this time.
Yeah, because that'd be crazy. Like if Aerith and Zack reunite, that'd be weird.
It would. So here's like a thing I was thinking of, right? What if in the next game they have you play both Cloud and Zack?
Oh shit!
So like you play Zack, but you're in the other timeline and you're trying to get over to the actual timeline to save Aerith or whatever. Like that would be crazy.
And whatever timeline you're playing with Zack in it means that Cloud is also there too.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, a younger version
But he's
of
like
this.
a non-developed Cloud because he didn't, like you said, so much of Cloud's development is owed to Zack dying.
Right.
So now does Cloud become an NPC in this alternate timeline?
Oh my god! Now I'm thinking again, Nomura shit. Like you're gonna have 2 different Clouds in the game eventually. Like Zack is there. I don't know, man. I hope they don't go too far down because to me, I'm like killing Zack is like, or keeping him alive is the equivalent of keeping Uncle Ben alive. It's like, it's like, wait, what are you doing? Again, it's like, will that play in an alternate timeline concurrent with the one we have now? Like, what's going on with Sephiroth? So many questions, and I don't even know if we're going to get satisfactory answers even in the next installment. Or if we're just going to get more. Go ahead.
The thing is, what now? Something that could break your heart for real is if too many people complain and Square Enix backtracks.
Oh.
And then they're like, okay, well, part 2 is going to be them going straight up to the Northern Crater and trying to stop him because he found out how to go back in time. And then they don't do any of the stuff from any of the games.
Oh, shit. Could you imagine?
So, like, part 2 could be, like, straight to the finish.
that would be really disappointing because I kind of want at least a trilogy out of this shit, you know? And especially with how much work they put into this one, it would be kind of like, it would just feel wrong if they just truncate everything. Oh, here you go. We're going to finish it right now, you know? I don't think they're going to do that, but that would be, ooh, no.
But the thing is that Nomura and team do read the comments and watch stuff just like this after it's posted. So we know.
Yo, Nomura, don't fuck it up.
Everybody's saying the same thing in all the comments. Nomura, don't go crazy. This is not Kingdom Hearts. And I know you have some beef with your bosses at Square-Enix because they took away your Versus 13, but don't throw that shit in here. This might be his, you know, low key, this might be his way of being like, I'm going to get my shit put out however I want to.
Oh, man. And I'm going to use Final Fantasy VII as my canvas. Oh, man.
Or my hostage.
Oh, shit.
So since you brought up Versus 13, right? Another thought I've been having since you guys mentioned that you think it's going to be completely different now, right? So what if they made the next part Final Fantasy 16 like they did with Versus when they made that Final Fantasy 15? Like,
that would be too much.
What would you?
I don't think the business leaders would let them do that because at some point they have to be like, you know, 16 and then anything in the 7 universe, especially because they've made what is the whole universe, like that whole collection of games called?
Oh, Nova Chrysalis. No, was that, what is that?
Vincent's story. It's called like the compilation of Final Fantasy VII or something.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah,
like, all those games are for them. If I were a boss at Square Enix, I would not let that happen. Like, the whole Versus 13 and then rebranding it to 15 was one thing, but to like take part 2 of 7 Remake and be like, nah, it's gonna be 16 instead.
Oh,
like,
nah, you better chill with that shit, man.
The reason brand suicide.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that would be a bad move, but the reason I think they might do something like that is because I think they find it really hard to make a new Final Fantasy like from scratch, and that's kind of why they went back to the remake, because it's like you have an inbuilt audience, like you know you're going to sell a lot because people love this story, right? But when it comes to making a completely new Final Fantasy entry, I think they're kind of scared now, like that they're unable to create something meaningful that people will be satisfied with, because you know there's been so many great Final Fantasies, you know, from 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, 6, you know, and 12 even, you know, and people like. I think they just feel the pressure to kind of deliver, you know, with a new numbered Final Fantasy. So I'm thinking, will they actually, you know, make this game the new 16 and just go from there? Like,
well, here's the good news. The good news is that they made a technically solid game with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and all they need to do is follow that formula, and they've got the assets and the tools, and they need to just make 16 with the same stuff that they got to make 7 Remake. This is the same thing when they ported over in 1997 to PS1, and you got Final Fantasy VII, and then you got Final Fantasy VIII, and then Final Fantasy IX was a compilation of all of their technological know-how in 2001, I think, 2002. But it was they just used the same stuff. Then, you know, we started getting into better graphics in PS2 and PS3, and that's when development started getting hard for them. They finally figured it out since the early days of newer modern technology, how to make a solid game. They just need to take what they've learned. They don't need to have any trouble with development. Just get somebody at Square Enix, someone up and coming, or maybe an OG, to write a good story, create characters, make it funny, kind of, not too serious, and give it that Final Fantasy flair, and call it 16, and we'll be happy with it. But they have such an advantage right now because they've made such a good game. They decided not to go with Crystal Tools, okay, and you know they made a good game. They just need to go ahead and make games.
Yeah, no Luminous engine running, you know, no more of that anymore. By the way, and Jonathan, you good with time? Because I know you had to leave by 7.
Yeah, I am. I have a whole hour and 30 minutes. Yeah.
All right. Another question from Eurocar. Do you guys think that Tifa... This is a funny one. Do you guys think that Tifa was secretly happy that 7th Heaven was destroyed because the bar was always empty except for Avalanche freeloaders and wanted to collect the insurance from the fall? Damn.
Did they have insurance?
Yeah, do they have insurance in the slums? Like, how does that
But that's
work?
a great question because it shows you like the level of depth that this game brought when we were talking about how it's lived in. Like, do they have insurance? Like, to me, okay, no, Gary lives in the UK, but I think Ryan, you live in New York, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So and Tony and I live in New York as well. It's like, who can afford to live in the city? So we're basically slum people. We live in the boroughs.
You
So
know?
like Manhattan is the top side plate,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like all the stuff that they go through, it's like just being a New Yorker that I could really relate with a lot of the stuff. So I'm like, because I saw like Shinra employees going home to the slums. I'm like, why do they live in the
Yeah,
slums?
that's what I thought. I'm like, yo, man, what are you living down there for, man? You
Right?
know, because like and they stand out because they're wearing their nice suits and shit, and then you see all these
They probably
squat.
got to get up in the morning and ride the train. Like, and they were complaining about the train not coming, and they were scared that it wasn't going to run, and
Oh
all this
man,
stuff. I really liked it. You know, I thought I was going to be miserable with like, oh, it's the slums, but like Wall Market is the place that made me really feel like I was somewhere else. And being able to see the sky and looking at the plate above. The one thing I will say is I wish that we would have been able to like freely, like if we had an open world aspect to it, it would have been to go up to the top as well, and
Mm.
to, like explore more of that beyond Jesse's neighborhood, which was really well made.
yeah, it
But like
was.
we only went there one time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I wish you could go back there.
yeah, you wanted to explore that JPEG up there, right?
Yeah. There's so much that they could have, like, if they wanted to introduce new stuff, they could have done so much new stuff with the upper part of Midgar, like in the city, so to speak.
Yeah, that would have been cool. There's something you said, Jonathan, on Twitter talking about how basically how you're like, hey, there's actually like houses and buildings and shit in the slums. Did people used to live here before? Like,
Oh
what's going on
yeah.
there? Yeah.
So like in 7 OG, I think it's in Junon, a guy in the town below Junon tells you that Midgar used to be a series of towns, or maybe it's somewhere. Anyway, they like all had their own mayor and they're all different sectors. But then Shinra came and built and covered the sky and blah blah blah. So like my friend Random J told me that's what they tell you in OG. Basically, there was like towns and stuff. So that's where Aerith's church comes from, and that's why they have like so much stuff down there. But then different things happened in different places. So like with um with Sector 6, they say it in the game, like there was an accident and then the plate collapsed, and so we know it happens in Sector 7 as well in the game. But then there's other things that lead you to believe that like the slums are just a dumping site. For instance, Palmer, the in one of the Shinra execs, which you'll know from OG as well, when Shinra quit their space program, they just quit it, and so they got rid of all their stuff. Well, in remake, there's a part in one of the slum dungeons, if you will. You can see the garbage from their failed NASA attempt, and then it made me think of Sid because I
Yeah.
saw a bunch of rocket ships, and I was like, oh shit,
Hmm.
that's Sid's shit right there. But like, you have to really be in the knowledge of the universe and the game to know that that's what that is.
Yeah, no, you're right about that because when I was exploring, I was like, yo, is that a rocket engine? What the hell is that?
Over
Yeah.
here. So like they really pointed that out, or like they really made sure to put that in for the fans of the old game. And it's little shit like that. But like yeah, lived in, feels good. And there's so much lore there, and I'm looking forward to Costa del Sol as well.
Yeah. Oh man, there's just so much it could do. It's again. Even though there's trepidation there a little bit, I'm just excited. I want to play it already.
Just that they do it though, because like again, like
Yes.
they might fuck around and just be like, okay, we're going to the end of like, or we're just changing it all up, and none of this is going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's start wrapping this up here. So last thoughts here. We'll start with you, Ryan. What would you think of the game overall, and just whatever final thoughts you want to give on it?
Yeah, I think just overall, like I really enjoyed it, like even more. Like not that I wasn't going to enjoy it, but I think like overall, like I wanted to play it because I think obviously it's like one of the biggest games that's come out this spring, and because people have been looking forward to it for so long. And like even though I don't have like I only played the original Final Fantasy VII like 5 years ago or so I played it pretty recently. But I think just seeing the reactions that people had to this game and the emotional response to it, I think it delivered overall. Is like even though we still have to see if there's going to be 3 parts, if it's going to be 8 parts, however many. I think Square did a great job with this first installment, and I'm excited to see, even as someone that's not necessarily like the biggest Final Fantasy fan, I think it was really enjoyable and fun to play. I think they delivered, and I'm excited to see where they go with it, in the next part.
Nice. Gary.
Yeah, as someone who was skeptical about this remake, before and everything, they completely won me over with this. It's an amazing game. It's hard to call any game perfect, but this game, like the original, means so much to me that, this game is almost perfect to me, and I can see myself replaying it so many times, just like the original. And actually, I just started a new playthrough of the original and the remake. So like I'm kind of playing them both simultaneously, like, just to see differences and stuff like that. But yeah, I really, really love the game. When I beat the game, I was initially thinking, this is a 10 out of 10 because I enjoyed it that much, right? But after thinking about it some more, just the fact that it is just Midgar, and that, they are starting to change stuff. I kind of bumped it down to like a 9.5, but it's an amazing game though. It's definitely the best Final Fantasy game that's been out in years, like maybe even like a decade or more than that, like maybe 2 decades. I really don't know, but it's amazing, man. Like I love it.
It's awesome. Jonathan.
Final thoughts are that it was a really good game again, solid. I'm just worried about where the story is going and if it gets too crazy. But I also am glad that they proved that they can make a solid game in 2020, and I hope they copy and paste all of that into future installments, because we are where we are with technology right now, and until we get into like augmented reality video games or VR Final Fantasies, like this is basically all they need to do. They just need to make games like this.
Yeah, I agree. And like, just going off what you said, like, yeah, it's nice to see when Square really cares, and it's nice to get a cohesive game out of them, even though this game is not quote unquote complete. I felt gameplay wise to me it was complete. I had a good, lack of a better term, a good meal out of it. I felt satisfied. And I also, just like Tim, even though I wasn't hostile towards it at all, I was looking forward to it. I'm just very surprised how much I liked it. Like, wow, this is good. It's different, but it kind of reminds me of the golden age of Square-Enix when you put out something like you knew you were getting gold, and this game was gold. Obviously not perfect, but all that, and there's questions about where the future goes. But this game, as a product itself, fantastic. My game of the year right now, and if I had to put a number on, I would give it a 9.5, and that's the fans call it. That's Tony 10, because I don't give any game a 10, So 9.5, I enjoyed it. I still want to go back and play, like I said earlier, the perfect playthrough, and just to really just like delve in there because it's just so good, man. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for making this an awesome show. This was a lot of fun, and it was just good to get that off my chest. I've been holding it in, man. So it was great to have you guys on. Thank you so much, and I hope we'll reconvene again in like 2 years for the next one. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, just before we go, I wanted to give you guys a chance to plug your stuff so people can find you. So Jonathan, you go first. Where can people find you?
I'm Jonathan, aka Blasian FMA, on everything, including TikTok, which I've just joined, and I'm teaching the kids the fundamentals of music and wearing wigs.
I've seen some of those. Like, that's fun because I always enjoyed your like regular videos and stuff. So it's kind of cool getting like bite-sized Jonathan, as I call it. Good stuff. All right, Gary, where can people find you, brother?
Oh yeah, just look me up on Twitter at Gary Swaby. I am, one of the co-founders of the coalition and a co-owner. So, you can find me at the website and everything as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, don't forget to buy Gary's books, The Senate of the Elders, and oh my God, what's the name of the other one? Starfade. Yeah, Starfade. Like awesome stories. If you like sci-fi and and fantasy is great, man. I really highly enjoyed it. So check that out. And Ryan, man, where can people find you?
You can just find me on Twitter at Ryan Meitzler, and everything I write and do is on DualShockers. So you can just head over there and see what we have going on over there.
Awesome. And as for me, you guys already know, man, Romudeth over on Twitter, ROMUDTH, and in my bio, links to all my stuff. PC Mag is where I call home now. I actually have my Final Fantasy VII review, so if you want to go check that out, please do. And that's that. So that is it for this spoiler alert. Awesome one, and we'll definitely do this again soon for the next one. So we'll see you guys next time. Later.
See ya.